Just let me know.
I haven't seen LEMMiNO's video on it. I just meant I remember the event. Did they solve it? No. Thanks to give sub Bill. No. Yeah, I mean, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's still unsolved. They just have a working theory. Yeah, no, it's still not solved. It's just working theories. Thanks to some punk chick in the 5 gift sub Sweat. Thank you, man.
Delivery manager.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sweat. Thank you for a long time of watching, Handyman.
Malaysian 370, standby.
At Kuala Lumpur International Airport, a Boeing 777 is preparing for departure.
Malaysian 370, request level. 370, we are ready, requesting flight level 350 to Beijing.
The unidentifiable.
Malaysian Airlines
oh yeah, I forgot.
Flight 370 is a daily passenger flight between Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia and Beijing, China.
370, 3 to right of takeoff. Nice.
42 minutes past midnight, Flight 370 is given clearance to depart. On board are Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, 10 cabin crew members, and 227 passengers.
Was this plane ever found? I don't know. I don't know.
Malaysian 370, Lumpur radar, good morning, climb flight level 250. Morning, level 250, Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, climb flight level 350. Climb level 350, Malaysian 370.
Less than an hour into the flight, the plane is cruising over the South China Sea at an altitude of 35,000 feet. The night sky is clear, and the weather
They
is
found
calm.
pieces, but not the whole
Flight
thing.
370 is then instructed to signal air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, as it is about to enter Vietnamese airspace. The flight controller in Kuala Lumpur says goodnight, with no sign that anything should be amiss.
Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Thanks, 3 sub Acid Redemption. Yeah, I know
1
Jeremy
minute
do it.
And 43 seconds later, the aircraft suddenly vanish from radar screens at Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh, and Bangkok.
What?
This form of positional tracking depends on a signal being emitted by one of 2 transponders aboard a plane, and so its disappearance would suggest both transponders ceased to function, or the system was manually deactivated by someone on board. All subsequent attempts to contact and ascertain the whereabouts of Flight 370 are unsuccessful. The aircraft has seemingly vanished without a trace. After missing its scheduled time of arrival in Beijing some 4 hours later, Flight 370 is officially declared missing. And in the wake of that announcement, the most expensive search effort in aviation history is about to commence.
And then I remember like a year after this, Malaysian Airlines also had another plane go missing or another accident, I don't recall. But that one was really fucking eerie, because one of the passengers had tweeted, "Here's my flight if it goes missing," and then it actually fucking did.
Of the flight's disappearance between the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand. The search area was soon expanded, however, after the Malaysian military disclosed additional information. Unlike the radar system employed by air traffic control, long-range military radar does not rely on transponders, but use reflectance to track the position
Just done work with
targets.
them
A
through
review
the
of the
company and
data
then became
collected by the
friends.
Malaysian military revealed that moments after contact with Flight 370 was lost, the aircraft had deviated from its scheduled flight path with a subtle turn to the right,
Yeah, you just haven't
followed by
found
a
it scary.
prolonged turn to the left. The aircraft had then flown back towards and across the Malaysian peninsula before turning right near the island of Penang. It maintained this northwesterly heading until it escaped the radar's coverage. Over the next few days, the Strait of Malacca, the Andaman Sea, and the Bay of Bengal was scoured by a multinational fleet of aircraft and vessels, but there was no trace of Flight 370. Meanwhile, investigators began to analyze the aircraft's satellite communication records.
What the fuck?
Like all modern airliners, Flight 370 was equipped with a satellite communications terminal, or SATCOM, to send and receive transmissions to and from the ground. Prior to departure, the SATCOM terminal had logged on to the satellite network and established a connection with a ground station in Perth, Australia. That station then maintained a detailed record of all the incoming and outgoing traffic between it and Flight 370. This is what it contained. Prior to the flight's disappearance over the South China Sea, everything appeared to be working as intended. Then, at some point during this portion of the flight, the SATCOM link was severed.
What happened? Did they see like a fucking dragon in the sky and just like get the fuck away from it?
3 minutes after the flight vanished over the Andaman Sea, the terminal requested to log back onto the network. The SATCOM link was successfully re-established and was not disrupted again until nearly 6 hours later, when the flight is presumed to have crashed due to fuel exhaustion. During these final hours, 2 attempts were made to contact the plane via satellite telephone. Both calls were acknowledged by the SATCOM terminal and would have been routed to the cockpit. Yet, they went unanswered. The terminal had also responded to 5 automatic status requests. In short, if the ground station had not heard from the aircraft in over an hour, it would transmit a signal to confirm the terminal was still online.
It's a real story.
While these transmissions did not contain any information about the flight's position, investigators were able to measure the distance between the satellite and the aircraft at the time of each transmission, based on how long it took those transmissions to be sent and received. This generated 7 rings of possible locations from which 7 of these transmissions are thought to have originated. By taking fuel consumption, speed, and other factors into account, flight path analysis indicated the most probable origin of the final transmission to be somewhere along this arc in the southern Indian Ocean. The search effort shifted accordingly, and as the region fell within the jurisdiction of Australia, the Australian government took charge of the operation. Over the next few weeks, the search area was progressively
hijack and not make any demands.
Drift as well as improve estimations of the flight path. But this part of the southern Indian Ocean is so remote, it took 6 days just to get there. A new fleet of aircraft and vessels gradually covered more than 4.5 million square kilometers of ocean, but Flight 370 was nowhere to be found. If the impact with the ocean had been sufficiently forceful, it was possible the resulting sound had been recorded by underwater listening devices known as hydrophones. This possibility was investigated, and 4 hydroacoustic monitoring stations had recorded something.
It is crazy how much shit there is, like, already in the world. Like, if it crashes in the middle of nowhere, luckily we still have these robo-lizards that we have just for monitoring. Might be picked up by one of those.
While the timing and direction of the sound were reasonably consistent with the final satellite transmission, the estimated origin was not. The sound was in all likelihood caused by nothing more than geological activity. Flight 370 was also equipped with 2 underwater locator beacons which had a battery life of some 40 days. And as the deadline approached in early April, signals with a pulse and frequency somewhat similar to the signal emitted by the beacons were detected at depths of up to 3,000 meters. An autonomous submersible then spent weeks scanning the seafloor where the signals had been detected, but no wreckage was ever found. And nothing would be found until more than 16 months later, when a discovery was made on the opposite side of the Indian Ocean. On the 29th of July 2015, a group of people were cleaning up a beach in Reunion, a small island to the east of Madagascar, when they stumbled upon this 2-meter-long metallic object covered in barnacles. Aviation experts quickly identified the object as a section of an aircraft.
I guess I've never seen a barnacle. Looks like it's fucking growing almonds. Or like little sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds or something. Damn, barnacles are fucking weird.
Covered in barnacles. Aviation experts quickly identified the object as a section of an aircraft wing known as a flaperon. Upon closer inspection, internal markings including dates and serial numbers conclusively ascertained the flaperon belonged to Flight 370. Even though Reunion Island is some 4,000 kilometers west of the search area, and more than a year had gone by since the flight disappeared, the location was consistent with simulations of debris dispersal patterns. There was now tangible evidence that Flight 370 had crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean. The discovery of the flapper arm prompted numerous searches along beaches and shorelines of southeastern Africa, and at least 31 additional items of interest have since been recovered and examined. Some of these items include a section of the outboard flap from the right wing, a piece of cowling from one of the two engines, a partial door from the nose landing gear, a section of the vertical stabilizer.
I fucking hate airplanes, man.
From one of the embedded headrests.
This is why I don't fly. This shit is terrifying.
18 of these items were identified as either likely, highly likely, or almost certain to have originated from Flight 370, whereas only 3 could be confirmed. The remaining 11 could not be identified. There were no traces of an explosion found on any of the debris tested, nor was there any evidence of a fire except for 3 small burn marks on one of the unidentifiable items. The search for debris was further aided by Earth observation satellites. Analyses of satellite imagery from March of 2014 uncovered a number of images which appeared to feature man-made objects floating on or just below the surface in the southern Indian Ocean. However, the images were not nearly sharp enough to resolve any identifiable markings, and multiple searches notwithstanding, this debris was never recovered. A satellite image taken mere hours after the final transmission also captured what appeared to be a contrail some distance away from the search area. A later analysis, however, concluded it was most likely a shadow from a somewhat linear cloud formation. The underwater portion of the search continued for months and eventually years before it was finally suspended in early 2017, by which point
they gave up.
120,000 square kilometers of seabed had been scrutinized. The search effort was then resumed by an American salvage company known as Ocean Infinity, but after more than a year of searching,
how would they have done that, Ryan?
Unless the final resting place of Flight 370 can be located, it may be impossible to determine exactly why it crashed. Nevertheless, there have been no shortage of theories. On the day of the disappearance, 2 of the passengers raised suspicion as they had boarded the flight with stolen passports, which immediately prompted concerns of a hijacking. But investigators were unable to link the 2 men to any terrorist organizations, and soon determined they had traveled under false identities because they were seeking asylum, not due to any nefarious intent.
Yeah, like hijacking wouldn't make any sense. They didn't make any demands.
Passengers were identified as a flight engineer who might have possessed the necessary expertise to take control of a Boeing 777. Apart from the 239 persons on board, Flight 370 carried nearly 11 metric tons of cargo. Among the items listed on the flight manifest was a shipment of lithium-ion batteries, which led some to suspect a fire might have broken out mid-flight. For instance, the crash of
Why do we still use lithium batteries?
In September of 2010
Nothing good comes from that shit.
was the result of a fire that was ignited by a pallet of lithium-ion batteries. Another potential source of ignition would be an electrical malfunction. The crash of Swiss Air Flight 111 in September of 1998 is thought to have been caused by a fire within the electrical wiring above
My
the
phone
cockpit.
doesn't use lithium-ion batteries, ion batteries. It's an iPhone.
Including the
it uses children's tears to power it.
In the case of Flight 370, the sudden loss of communication and subsequent deviation from its scheduled flight path might have been a direct response to a fire. The 2 pilots may have turned back towards Malaysia to attempt an emergency landing at the nearest suitable airport. But no such attempt was ever made. Instead, Flight 370 kept going and remained aloft for another 6 hours. Some have theorized the crew might have been incapacitated by a sudden or gradual loss of cabin pressure. For instance, when Helios Airways Flight 522 failed to pressurize in August of 2005, the pilots quickly fell unconscious. Yet the aircraft continued to fly on autopilot for more than 2 hours until it ran out of fuel. Airline pilots are of course trained for such an event.
Wait, what
in the event of cabin depressurization, fell unconscious.
Wait, did it crash or did it land itself? What the fuck? We have the capability for the plane to just completely fly itself on the pattern? I thought you still needed the pilot present to guide it. I thought it was just kind of like activating cruise control in your car. Hold on a second. Did it crash or did it like just have a successful landing all autonomously? Oh, it crashed. Oh, fuck. So it didn't pressurize and everyone was incapacitated. Holy shit. Oh, did he say it crashed? Oh, I just looked at this. I didn't even notice it said crashed. Well, that'll do it. Thanks to the resub, Erotic and J. Cuddy.
Yet the aircraft continued to fly on autopilot for more than 2 hours until it ran out of fuel. Airline pilots are of course trained for such an event. In the event of cabin depressurization, an automatic system is designed to deploy oxygen masks to give the pilots enough time to perform an emergency descent to a more breathable altitude. The data recorded by the Malaysian military radar does indeed contain altitude information, but it is highly inconsistent. In fact, the Boeing 777 is incapable of performing the extreme altitude fluctuations recorded. At one point, the aircraft exceeded its maximum operating altitude by more than 15,000 feet, before making a 50,000 feet nosedive in less than a minute. Attempts to recreate these maneuvers on a flight simulator were unsuccessful, and thus the data was deemed inaccurate and unreliable. If Flight 370 did lose cabin pressure at 35,000 feet, and the pilots were incapacitated before descending to a more oxygenated altitude, it might explain why the aircraft remained aloft for as long as it did. What is a bit more difficult to explain, however, are these alterations in heading. Flight simulations have established the aircraft must have been under manual control during the initial left turn, as the bank angle or inclination of that turn was beyond the limits of the autopilot. Subsequent turns, however, could have been either manual or automatic. But for the autopilot to have made these course corrections, someone with the requisite knowledge must have programmed it to do so. The only other alternative is that the aircraft was in fact under manual control.
Thanks for the bits, Beef, and hello there. Yeah, I was talking about it the other day, hello there. I still haven't caught up on all of it, but yeah, it's a pretty fucked situation.
In late June of 2014, several news outlets reported that a special investigation had identified the captain of Flight 370 as a prime suspect. A search of the captain's home had uncovered a flight simulator which supposedly contained a suspicious route which ended in the southern Indian Ocean. At the time, there was no official acknowledgement that such a route had been recovered, and a lengthy public report issued by the Malaysian government in 2015 made no mention of such a discovery. Then, in 2016, confidential documents pertaining to a forensic examination conducted by the Royal Malaysia Police in May of 2014 was leaked to the media. These documents made it clear that such a route had not only been recovered, but thoroughly examined. Soon thereafter, the Malaysian government confirmed the existence of this simulated flight path, and this is what it looks like. It should come as no surprise that many regard this as damning evidence of premeditation, but according to investigators, it is not quite so evident. The data recovered consists of 7 coordinates, 2 in Kuala Lumpur, 2 in the Strait of Malacca.
What was he planning to do? Drive it straight to fucking Antarctica?
And 2 in the southern Indian Ocean. The data was reconstructed from a file that had been automatically generated and saved by the simulation software a month before the incident. However, it's not clear whether the coordinates originate from the same flight session. In other words, it might not be correct to simply trace a continuous line between these 7 coordinates, as they could be from separate sessions. The forensic examination by the Royal Malaysia Police simply concluded no activity captured conclusively indicate any kind of premeditated act pertaining to the incident of MH370. Even so, the similarities between the simulated route and the presumed route of Flight 370 directly influenced the search operation. Australian investigators considered the possibility of someone deliberately extending the range of the flight by gliding the aircraft off the fuel exhaustion. If so, the plane could have traveled an additional 200 kilometers. Alternatively, the range could have been reduced by a controlled ditching prior to fuel exhaustion. While ultimately deemed unlikely, these 2 scenarios did affect the search effort. If the captain steered Flight 370 off course with the intention of crashing in a remote part of the southern Indian Ocean, his motive is an even greater mystery. Sahari Ahmad Shah was 53 and married with 3 children. He had more than 18,000 hours of flight experience and a spotless track record. Investigators found no evidence of financial issues, and his monthly expenses before the disappearance indicated nothing unusual. He had no history of mental illness, nor had he displayed any recent changes in lifestyle or behavior. He was raised on the island of Penang, which has led some to speculate the flight's second turn to the southwest of Penang was the captain getting a final view of his hometown. Some believe a hijacking could have been politically motivated, as Zaharie was an avid supporter of a democratic opposition leader who was sentenced to 5 years in prison mere hours before Flight 370 took off. Others point to unconfirmed reports of marital issues, but this is contradicted by the official investigation and disputed by family members. The only real inconsistency noted by the final report is that the captain failed to repeat the assigned radio frequency during the last verbal communication.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
It would have been standard procedure to repeat the assigned frequency, as the captain had correctly done a few minutes prior.
370, contact Lampu Radar 1326. Good night. Alright, 1326, Malaysian 370.
Whether this omission is indicative of anything but a mistake is anyone's best guess.
Yeah, I don't think that means
shit. By all accounts, Captain Zaharie was an affable and well-respected pilot who was passionate about aviation, as evident by the photos and videos he shared on social media.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Community service after learning.
The co-pilot was found to be even less conspicuous. Farik Abdul Hamid was only 27, and due to marry a fellow pilot, he had nearly 3,000 hours of flight experience, although only 39 hours in this type of aircraft. Much like Zaharie, Farik had no financial, mental or interpersonal issues of note, nor was there any evidence of conflict between the two of them. Some questioned the plausibility of a pilot-instigated hijacking due to the apparent lack of interference by the other pilot. Well, when Ethiopian Airlines Flight 702 was hijacked by the co-pilot in February of 2014, he did so by merely waiting for the captain to take a bathroom break before locking the cockpit door behind him. The co-pilot was then free to divert the Italy-bound flight to Switzerland to seek asylum. The only piece of evidence in regards to the co-pilot of Flight 370 is his phone. You see, when the confidential documents were leaked, they also confirmed another long-circulated rumor, namely that a cell phone tower had briefly established a connection with an iPhone 5S belonging to the co-pilot as Flight 370 approached the island of Penang. According to investigators, it was not a phone call, as has been widely reported by the media, but merely an automatic location signal. Why this information was omitted from public reports, we may never know. So what is one to make of all of this? On the one hand, the simulated flight path seems suspicious. On the other, it is difficult to cast any substantial doubt on either of the two pilots' character.
Yeah, I mean, the dude seems nice. Like, I don't think
to deny a hijacking is consistent with the available evidence. Then again, we're missing some quite major and literal pieces of evidence. The final report issued by the Malaysian government in 2018 could not attribute the loss of communication nor diversion of Flight 370 to a malfunction. Instead, it is believed that someone manually manipulated the aircraft and its systems. For instance, investigators believe SATCOM was manually disabled by a sudden and prolonged interruption of power. Then, once power was restored, the terminal simply rebooted. Likewise, the alterations in heading are believed to be the result of manual inputs. With that being said, the uncertainty of these findings are repeatedly emphasized due to the limited evidence available, and the report does never explicitly state the flight was hijacked. In fact, no real conclusion is reached. Both the Malaysian and Australian government agree that Flight 370 crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, but that the cause is indeterminable without the wreckage, the location of which has managed to elude some of the foremost aviation experts in the world, as well as an impressive arsenal of cutting-edge technology for more than half a decade. Authors, aviation experts, and independent investigators have all chimed in to offer their own thoughts and theories as to the nature of the crash and the location of the wreckage. Some believe there was no crash, but that the aircraft was shot down by an American naval base in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The satellite transmissions were then supposedly
that wouldn't make
forged
any sense,
as part
though.
of a massive cover-up.
Wouldn't explain
Others
this.
believe the aircraft turned right towards India and traveled as far north as Kazakhstan, completely undetected. Debris was then supposedly planted along shorelines of southeastern Africa as part of a massive cover-up.
That makes sense, I guess.
Another theory suggests the aircraft was remotely hijacked and controlled by someone on the ground.
Thanks to Prime
While
Greg.
Boeing and other companies have experimented with technology that would allow for an aircraft to be remotely controlled, no commercial airliner is known to be outfitted with such a system. On the less conspiratorial side, the assumption that Flight 370 flew in a straight line and at a constant speed after turning left towards the southern Indian Ocean might simply be incorrect. In early 2018, a French team of independent investigators proposed an alternate flight path, whereby an attempted landing on Christmas Island led to a crash site much further north than the region identified by the
Christmas Island, huh?
While a surface search of this area was conducted about a week after the disappearance,
what are the odds?
The underwater phase never reached this far north.
Thanks to the resub, Jimmy.
As of the making of this video, the search operation has been suspended, but there have been talks of potentially resuming the search. For now, it seems, the vanishing of Flight 370 will remain a mystery.
I had no idea it was that deep. From what I remember, I thought it was just pretty well understood that it crashed. And I thought it was just like a straight line and then something happened, they didn't know what. I had no idea there was this whole like turn, all this shit. I had no clue. That is so fucking weird. So the first turn had to be manual. They had to manually turn off the systems like shit. Why do people keep saying shot down? That wouldn't make any sense. That doesn't explain this at all. And also why the systems would be turned off. It was shot down by 5G towers. Yeah, maybe that makes more sense. Thanks for the gift sub, Skittle, and the resub, Jimmy. What an interesting fucking mystery, man. Yeah, I fucking hate planes. If even one plane malfunctions and crashes, I'm never going on one. It's fucking horrifying. I wish we could just have some sci-fi shit, or it's just a giant portal that rips through space-time continuum, so that way you don't have to be, like, reatomized. You just... Like in Jumper, you know? Or not Jumper. Doctor Strange. You just open this giant thing and you see the other side and you just step right through. Simple and easy. Deadliest computer virus by Disrupt. The world's deadliest computer virus. Alright.
A 6.5 magnitude earthquake is shaking the foundations of the Bangai Islands. 93 million miles away, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter...
Oh, is it a space virus?
...and the Sun, all conjoined.
Aliens hacked our hentai folders?
Back at the equator, it's early morning. A student presents an idea for his senior thesis. He says the internet has become too costly for the average person.
Damn, this is really well made. Holy shit.
He can create a program that would retrieve the account logins of other individuals, hijack their internet.
Thanks for resub, Tim Tom.
Obviously, he wouldn't release the bug. He just wants to show he can do it before graduation. The dean's response...
We do not... What does that say?
Student writes...
We do not produce burglocks. What is that, like a Magic the Gathering card? What the fuck is a burglock? We do not... burger? No, it's not a burger. What the fuck is this? Burglars! Oh, this is a K. Oh, I thought this was a K. Burglars. He just... he forgot this part, so it looks like a K. Okay.
the last line of code. He originally developed it to be geolocked to Manila, a safety net. But last minute, out of sheer curiosity,
Thanks to resub Yanray.
he removes the geographic restriction. Shrouded in the universal message of peace, the file looks to be from a secret admirer.
Oh, this is like the... Ooh, this is a classic.
Once opened, the full file extension reveals itself.
Hey, thank you,
This is
Tip.
a visual
Thanks,
basic
resub Come Dragon.
It uses an exploit in early computer systems that allowed it to run system code simply by being opened. The top two files are sent to the Windows system folder, where they wait. The bottom one is sent to the Windows directory.
Production on this is off the fucking charts.
Key in the local machine registry. This causes other programs to run as soon as the system boots, before the user even has a chance to log in. From there, it opens Internet Explorer and randomly picks from a series of 4 web pages. Once landed, it downloads winbugsfix.exe. Then, it adds another registry key at the starting line.
Okay.
It gathers the system
What does it all mean?
Password, IP address,
Oh.
and remote access information, packages it up neatly, and sends it to mailme at super.net.ph. After the details are set,
I love that he has like his own little
searches
fucking
for
video
files
game world
containing
here to
extensions
enter.
like .js or
Like Code Miko
.css.
shit.
It overwrites them
Thank you.
with the file extension. It does the same for JPEGs and MP3s, rendering them completely unretrievable.
World's deadliest computer virus.
Once the damage is done, the worm enters Outlook, scans for emails, then sends itself using the originator's email
Thanks to
address.
Tier 1 Seagull and resub Rimbuck.
Destruction is now spreading through a message of peace and love.
You are watching Disrupt.
This is movie quality shit here.
From Philippines to Hong Kong, the virus has infected several large corporations and banks, not only deleting important files within the companies,
Look
but
greater.
grabbing the email listings of all individuals in contact. From there, it jumps to Europe, where it wreaks particular damage to the email servers within the House of Commons. They're forced to shut down, same with the Denmark Parliament. With classified documents in danger of being wiped out.
Who the fuck
US
opened
Air
I
Force
love
has
you
deployed
emails
system
at the Parliament
ASAP.
building?
Works by
Nobody's getting an
utilizing
I love you
the
message there.
sensors that the Air Force had previously placed across bases throughout the country. It then creates a sort of window for centralized command
What
to
is
view
Exit Tier 1 Nathan.
emails.
Computer virus.
The email matches
Yeah,
the
but
description. Command sends a
not understanding,
TCP
like, the video.
reset to that desktop.
It's
It's
giving...
Just
Stop
explaining
receiving
the
emails
virus?
for
Yeah, and what? It's a like a history lesson.
terminate the meeting.
Oh,
The private
that's
sector
boring.
is not so lucky.
Oh,
Most
well, I
companies are
highly
using
disagree.
Outlook, including AT&T and Ford. They are forced to take their email servers offline.
Exit Tier 1 your friend
The virus
Tio
has
and the
now
Prime
affected
Nardo.
nearly 55 million computers. Along with the emails, a second spreader has been identified. Within the original files, one is named mirc.ini.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be a
This is the
dude's
computer for
name.
an IRC client.
It was just a picture of my dad.
It automatically
He was spreading
sends
it back
the
in
result to all
2000.
contacts that the victim may share on a server. Instead of a love letter, though, it sends this message. Thinking it's a legit file, tech-savvy users of IRC would recognize the name, the author of MIRC. It's only after running the script
Thanks to gift sub your
they
friend
know
and the
it
resub
had nothing
Kartik.
to do with it. Security analysts are scanning the virus, looking for clues as to the origin. They find that a component within closely resembles a password cracker named that was discovered 4 months earlier. They find within it signed names and resumes, an entry that says, in the resume portion is an extended list of
Like the
first
Joker
and
with a
last
calling
names,
card.
along with a group title.
Good man.
This traces back to an after-school club at a computer college in the Philippines. An apartment is raided. Inside is a man, a woman, and an empty desk with a dusty outline of a Gateway Performance 1500.
How do they know?
The man, now identified as Romo Ramones, is the boyfriend of Irene de Guzman.
Oh, is this something that actually happened?
The older sister of a student in the college.
No, I thought it was just explaining what could have happened if
so
this happened.
On the list.
What?
I didn't know that they actually had a virus go through. When was this?
2000.
Oh, well, that's why.
Exit Tier 1, Pinkerton, the Prime Kawarda. Resub Jake.
You're going to find that it's a lot lighter than usual as you drive eastbound from the...
That was Love Shack by the B-52s. You're listening to 102.7 KISS FM. Folks, it's a sunny 75.5 degrees in Los Angeles.
Fucking 3. Why would I know about this?
It's Win a Porsche Friday. You know the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember it super well either, but I don't know why it'd be a fake history lesson.
I didn't realize that it was a history lesson. I mean, he's just explaining what happens if a virus goes through and all this stuff happens. I didn't know it was something that really happened that way. That it was just going through like this could happen if this...
I get ya.
Very recognizable as our current day web. This is before .coms and .orgs.
Hey, he said like a history lesson. Doesn't make me think it actually happened and it's an actual history lesson.
A telephone number for ARPANET was the first wide area network that allowed different connections to send information to each other. Also known,
I wonder if they're gonna bring up my old website here for evidence. I remember I had a Pixo.
His home modem. Sure enough,
maybe that's the key.
He's gained access to the University of California, Berkeley. Diving further, he discovers there's potential government documents hidden behind a password. He tries guessing. He tries
UCB.
Over the next
Good guess.
Dante continues logging in. For him, it's less about obtaining sensitive information or leaking it, more about gaining power, snooping around, seeing how far he can cross the line. On one of his deep dives, he makes a fatal error. He forgets to mask his login name.
Why even make the login name your name?
Miles away.
Make it like Dick Hard Thundercock or something. Who cares?
He continues. The kid answers the door. He's greeted by the Los Angeles DA. They seize his computer, but since he's underage, he isn't charged.
Now he works for NSA.
In the back reaches
Tier 1
of
Sentient
Menlo
Salt
Park
and the resub
storage
Moshe and the 2 gift subs
workers are
Linen.
clearing out unpaid storage units.
Already
It's a
seen that
routine
Seagull.
job.
It's like a
Break
300
open
million
lock,
view video.
Clear out the belongings, auction off what they can. But in this particular unit, they find something. The Stanford Research Institute, one of the centers impacted by the previous escapades,
Is it Prime
reaches
Rye?
out to Kevin, proposing that he works for them, securing their network. The 18-year-old is hired.
Hey, congrats, Kevin! Fuck
He's
yeah!
drawn to a few blocks from the main entrance
Big
of
pickup.
SRI. He spends his days working on encryption algorithms for secure military communications. He's successfully gone from an underground black hat hacker to a white hat hacker with a paycheck. Detective James Neal of the Menlo Park PD thinks he's looking at a standard case of stolen property. The storage bill is assigned to
Thanks to the anonymous gift sub.
John Anderson. A quick search finds this name to be a fake. Upon further inspection of the unit, the detective finds blank IDs and a document containing an unpublished number of the Soviet embassy.
Oh boy,
Another document
we've been infiltrated.
containing the name.
Thanks to the 5 gift subs, Shuby, and the Prime Urinal Goblin, and Dad Kisser. Cool name.
The National Bureau of Investigation issues a mandatory court appearance for 2 students, Onel de Guzman, who originally proposed the thesis, and Michael Buen, who is suspected to have helped write the structure of the worm.
This is his trial date still pending 21 years
Nowhere to
later.
be found.
One day we'll ask him about it.
The worm continues its spread, though the effects are beginning to weaken. A press conference is called. The guest of honor, Onel de Guzman. When asked if he is the one who unleashed the virus, Nell states, and when questioned if he feels anything.
Oh come on, go hard with the supervillain shit.
Mumbles nothing, then covers his ears. Being the first large-scale computer crime out of the Philippines,
Thanks, the
authorities have trouble charging Onel
and drop bears.
Over the subsequent months,
all right, man. We had a good day.
Congress passed legislation dealing with computer-related crimes. But seeing as this was made official after Onel's stunt, he can't be charged. Ultimately, the case against him boils down to credit card fraud. Onel never admits.
Please survive, give some sticky keys and resub plant.
He may have inadvertently released the program. All charges against him are dropped. In total, the estimated damages are said to exceed $7.8 billion in wiped files.
Wow, not bad.
For cleanup.
Fuck yeah, Onel de Guzman. Congrats.
He finally admits to creating the virus and releasing it. He said he did it alone.
But why? What did he want? The madman.
ABS files have been written. And nope, it's been overwritten. It will not boot.
Exit Prime, Narfles, and resub.
The cybersecurity specialist
Lyricity
is deep in an organization's.
Yeah, we'll do Darkman in a bit.
He's well equipped to face any situation that may arise, but he started at the fundamentals. Is offering computer science courses at a fraction of the cost of traditional university rates.
Wait, this is absolutely an ad.
To become a network engineer, cybersecurity specialist.
Yeah, oh, it was still so well produced, I thought it was part of the hack. Shit, they almost had me. God, it's like the fucking Chris Angel pre-commercial, yeah, pre-commercial shit. It's so fucking cool.
For questioning. He denies everything.
He's resub Zeus.
A few hours later, they accompany him to
I thought that said I forgot the law, not I fought the law. I was like, what?
One of these is a lineman's headset. This device can be connected wherever there are exposed telephone wires accessible. When connected to a line, the handset is essentially indistinguishable from regular telephones, except it can intercept active calls, answer incoming calls, and make outgoing calls. Back then, you needed a license to operate it, something Kevin is lacking. They confiscate some of the equipment and start their investigation.
Is that Kevin, that son of a bitch?
And equipment.
Going in there to flip over a fax machine?
Pictures. A young, slender male crouching down and picking the lock of a Pacific Bell trailer. Further pictures show the same subject inside the telephone trailer, posing with it.
We got him!
Too easy scheme.
We're sorry. All of our representatives are still assisting other customers.
It's a sunny 75.5 degrees in Los Angeles, and today isn't just any
Dark Souls win? Soon. We'll hit more Dark Souls soon.
It's Win a Porsche Friday. You know the rules.
Exit tier 1 monolithic.
I'm going to bed.
Sleep well.
Let's roll.
Kevin flips a switch, blocks every other caller from reaching the line. Now, any line that is picked up would redirect to him.
You don't have to be up for anything.
Including the 102nd.
Not early.
Congratulations, you've won a brand new Porsche. Who's the lucky winner? Wow, I can't believe it. This
Exit tier 1 Gantz.
Michael B. Peters.
One can only speculate about what motivated Kevin Poulsen.
Oh God! It's non-pedophile hunter Chris Hansen.
Possibly a genius. But now he is a wanted man, facing up to 37 years in prison.
A TV show has just aired an episode about Kevin's hacks. The show opens their phone lines to callers that may have tips about the subjects. On the premiere of this particular episode, the phone lines are jammed.
Classic Kevin.
During his time laying,
he released an EMP
LA
device.
Vice Squad, a division focused on public order crimes like narcotics and gambling, pick up Kevin on an undisclosed minor crime. Eventually, though, they release him, failing to check the federal warrant database.
That was lucky.
The feds have received a tip that Kevin is still living in LA.
Thanks to gift sub again, Sticky.
Question some of his acquaintances. One says that he frequents. They go to the store, give the employees his picture, and wait.
Just go to a different market. You can't be forming habits as a criminal.
Is working the night shift.
Gotta keep them on their toes.
He spots a familiar face. Kevin has dyed his hair a light blonde, but it isn't enough.
Hey Wheeler, thanks for the 5 gift subs, man.
Dials the authorities, ensuring Kevin doesn't spot him. By the time they arrive, Kevin is gone. For the next 24 hours, the agent on duty, Terry, stakes out the parking lot.
Thanks to the Prime, see that?
Terry takes a position at the front door. 2 clerks sneak up behind Kevin and tackle him to the ground.
But it wasn't Kevin. It was a 9-year-old schoolboy Kevin paid
him into the back room
to impersonate him.
Can arrive. As if on cue, Kevin begins complaining that his eyes are watering. He requests that he take his contact lenses out and get the glasses from a bag in his car. Terry agrees and retrieves the bag, but he checks it before handing it over. Sure enough, in the glasses case is a universal handcuff key.
Oh, wait, what? I still think it's super dumb that all handcuffs use the same key. I think that's so fucking dumb. What an oversight.
She recognizes the phrase and calls one of Kevin's hacker friends, who subsequently retrieves an incriminating computer from an undisclosed location. However, the police are a step ahead. Months earlier, they recruited a local hacker to infiltrate the local LA hacker circle. He rings the bell and the incriminating computer is intercepted. It takes nearly 9 months for them to decrypt it. Nearly 2 years after his arrest, Poulsen is accused of 19 counts that include conspiracy,
rough.
connection with access devices,
they got him.
Interception of wire or electronic communications, and money laundering. He faces 100 years in prison and nearly $5 million in fines.
Give him a job.
This is considered one of the first large-scale cases against the newly defined crime of hacking. If successfully charged, they hope to send a clear message to the mid-90s hacking community. Eventually, Poulsen pleads guilty to several counts of computer fraud.
Why are people arrested for money laundering?
And money laundering. He's ordered to pay $58,000 in fines and given a 51-month sentence. Kevin is released on parole. By court order, he's barred from using computers. For the first time, in the 2000s, he flips the switch. He gains access.
No, Kevin, fuck! Wait, 2012?
Okay, this is the question. Did I ever consider leaving California altogether, going across the country? I did consider that, but...
I don't think I'm going to watch CSGO Rage. It doesn't sound very fun.
I wanted to solve the problem, not run away from it.
Oh, I thought he turned into Tony Hawk for a second. He gave up hacking and now he just skateboards.
Hey, so I was just thinking about how everyone in the world has their own conscience, their own lives, everything. Everyone alive is living. So then I thought about how much computer processing power it would
Pretty impressive!
everybody's
Not
conscience.
bad.
I'm not saying that our universe is simulated. I don't actually believe in that theory.
Oh, okay.
All I'm saying is that...
Is this Kevin?
Just stop for a moment and think about how much processor power would be required to simulate everybody's conscience. Another thing.
Okay. We don't need to get too deep into the weeds of simulated universe, I suppose. Cult in a dead MMO? Is it this one? This one's 34 minutes. Wait, this one's kind of like a fucking fat one. And it's already 1:30. We can let it ride. Fuck it. Thanks to the resub Mamalona. Maybe Soul Eater. And thanks to the Prime Lux.
Welcome to Worlds Online, the internet's first 3D virtual world platform.
Woohoo! 3D, that's crazy. We can fucking smell and go wild in here.
Virtual space. Online users can shop, watch movies, listen to music, play games, and collaborate with each other. Today's web user is looking for an intimate connection with friends, with celebrities, and with trending brands that reflect their values and lifestyle in both the real world and the virtual. By investing in Worlds, you are investing in the future. Worlds.com.
All good, Raiders. Just ask him out.
Together.
Throughout the mid-2010s, an urban legend would surface about a mysterious MMO by the name of Worlds.com.
Thanks to resub Chippewa and the Tier 1
Having
cuddles.
been launched to the public in the mid-1990s, the game was believed by many to be dead, discontinued, and lost to the inevitable void of internet history.
Where?
Unbeknownst to most,
how do people even find
further
that?
From the truth, as Worlds.com was very much still running. But there was a catch. Venturing into the game today presents you with
this looks cool.
Of nothingness, a relic that
What
was
the
once
fuck?
bustling with life, and
You get to play as a duck or a penguin?
to life supports. The game, expectedly, is completely empty.
Thanks for the 5 gift subs, 28 down. Appreciate it.
You see, rumor had it that Worlds.com was hiding something, a shrouded purpose that's been kept from the public. Rumors involving in-game cults, boxing, graphic imagery, and virtual stalking have led curious minds to hesitantly venture into Worlds themselves in hopes of finding out if these allegations were true.
What the fuck? That's nuts! Alright.
This is the story of Worlds.com.
Alright, I'm super invested in this now. Is it a cool cult? Did they do cool things like give out candy on holidays and stuff? Or one of those bad ones like the Manson shit?
An aside. The 1990s were a magical time in the world of entertainment and the advancement of society. Being what I can only describe as the calm before the imminent mid-2000s technological storm, we were living in an era that brought us some unforgettable treasures in the realms of video gaming, movies,
yeah,
and television.
blockbuster, classic, fuck
in
yeah.
the gaming world, for instance, new and unforgettable IPs such as Mario Kart,
yeah, agreed, Soul Eater.
Banjo-Kazooie, Fallout, Resident Evil, and Silent Hill were born. And with these came game consoles that have stood the test of time and bringing us unforgettable experiences such as the Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, and the Dreamcast.
God, the Dreamcast was so good, the most underrated console in history, Power Stone. We need a third Power Stone, please? So good. Sugoi! Fuck, it was so good.
That predated the modern interconnected society that we live in today. A lot of nostalgia is carried inside of many, as the mid-1990s are remembered as a time when the internet was just barely getting its footing into mainstream culture.
Next to Prime Ireland.
During this era were nothing but an expensive novelty, at least for my family, and the ones that did have one used them primarily for work. In August of 1995, Microsoft would release a revolutionary competitor to the Netscape Navigator, the pre-existing OG of internet browsing, called the Internet Explorer.
Yeah!
If you were lucky enough to get your hands on a PC in this era, Then, combined with the tools at your disposal in Windows 95, you're able to venture into the vast, wild west of an enigma known as the World Wide Web.
God, the internet back then was so wild and wacky.
In today's culture, things have changed.
I'll never forget when I was horny and typed in like boobies and went to a site that had a demon on it.
Sterilized,
Haunted.
being pushed to the brink of minimalism and moderation. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of the magic and charm that existed in the wacky and terribly designed UIs of the past are largely gone, replaced by logos containing simple shapes, any shred of creative color being replaced by whites, Microsoft, and all-encompassing oversimplification of pretty much everything. As you've heard in my incessant rambling so far, the era was magical, and a lot of newfound creative mediums were on the rise. While video gaming via a conventional console was the primary method of escaping into a mystic world, the rise of the internet paved the path for a new form of interactive storytelling and interconnected social
gaming.
And those were a little something
for gamers
as MMOs.
Oh,
or massive
kinda.
multiplayer online video games.
I'm really sorry to hear that, bro. Wishing you the best moving forward. It's awful.
Of the many websites that were available to early adopters of the internet, one would be launched in April of 1995.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that, dog. My bad, man.
The website was created by a
Thank
company
you.
simply named Worlds Inc. and housed a public 3D chat room that players could enter and explore to their heart's content. According to the website, the minimum configuration is a 90 MHz or faster processor with 32 MB of memory. The recommended platform is a Pentium class processor.
Okay, real quick, is it just me, or on his voice, is there like a really low voice layered into it? Is it just my headphones, or am I hearing like a fucking MMO demon in there? Yeah? Okay, cool. So it's not just me. I didn't know if my headphones were dying, or if Satan was communicating through Lil Nas's music and infiltrating or something like that. Fucking weirding me out. No one else mentioned it in the chat.
133 MHz or faster with 48 MB of memory. Windows 95, 98, 2000, or NT. A whopping 80 megabytes of
Thanks to some Red Rider and
space
Marksman.
and an active internet connection. The game was a big success, mostly attributed to the novelty of virtual online chat rooms at the time, and garnered the attention of various big names, including David Bowie, Steven Spielberg, and a digital artist by the name of Tamiko Thiel. The latter two actually teamed up at one point and created an in-game environment called the Starbright World, which was aimed at giving seriously ill children an outlet to interact. The gameplay is mostly what you'd expect from something out of the mid-1990s. At the outset of registering your profile, players are given the opportunity to choose between various avatars to represent themselves in-game. Among them are a human, a penguin, a monster, a kangaroo, and a clown.
Good selections.
Advertising
Not bad.
websites are various realms.
Oh, and you can be on the
available for you to
Yankees?
Explore at your leisure. Among the hundreds that you're able to choose from, a few notable ones include worlds themed around David Bowie, the New York Yankees, the band Hanson, the Sky, an Animal House, and a Fun House.
Thanks to resub.
Venturing out into worlds for the first time,
Spionix?
you're thrown into a central hub with other players from around the world. The various themed environments that we mentioned prior are accessible through tunnels and doors that are next to their labels, and entering these immediately loads whichever one you so choose.
Pretty innovative for its time, to
Any
be
3D
fair.
PC game is achieved using your keyboard and mouse, and also available to you is a chat box,
Thanks to
allowing
Prime.
you to communicate to
Again,
others
Grinna.
in real time. Now this seems like nothing out of the ordinary. Along with the primitive graphics, the game is pretty substandard today. At the time though, this was absolutely groundbreaking, and PC owners flooded this thing, giving it a burst of life that would deem Worlds.com a massive success.
Fuck yeah.
As with anything that's been crafted in the digital age though, the user base began to decline over the years. With the
Kinda
advent
seen
of
it.
various
More like
competitors,
Second Life.
The mid-2000s brought with it the inevitable desertion of the Worlds.com user base, as players moved on to bigger and better ventures. Second Life, RuneScape, Toontown, VMK, MyCoke,
Habbo
and
Hotel.
Hotel
Yeah, I knew it was
were becoming
coming.
viable alternatives that not only looked better, but gave players more to do with their own distinct charm. You may have noticed that most of the names that start off are now defunct. The Toontown, VMK, and MyCoke live support plugs were pulled as their developers encountered an existential problem that was prevalent from the start. They couldn't find a way to monetize them. Combined with this, the fact that these games were all run with the help of moderation teams and ongoing servers, it became evident that as long as these virtual worlds were online, whoever it was that was running them was losing money. At this point, you'd expect Worlds Inc. to pull the plug. With a dwindling user base and aging game mechanics, it seemed like this was the only sensible way to go.
Oh, giant spider, watch out, holy shit!
Or release something new and optimized for the next generation of online gaming. But they didn't.
Damn, this place is popping off
As
in
a
there.
matter of fact, Worlds.com is still downloadable and accessible to this day, and stands as an uncanny and deserted relic of the past.
This is cool.
Rumor has it that the game's creator,
I wanna play.
Tom Kidron, is simply fronting the server costs himself and running it out of his own home.
Good man.
That begs the question.
Thanks.
Why on earth would an individual be fronting the costs to keep a dead video game alive? What part of this?
He's got a virtual girlfriend with big
so
titties.
pivotal that it's still in existence over 20 years later.
This looks so cool, look at this.
In the short span of time that I've been here, it suddenly dawned on me that I'm visibly the new guy. Everyone here seems to know it.
Uh-oh.
I'm not a regular.
They think he's a cop. They think he's the feds.
Down the rabbit hole.
Run, get out of there. Engage, no clip. Thanks to resub Broden and Kenway. Yeah, someone is still running the servers, he just said that.
Rumors began to spread about the game thanks to certain anons from 4chan's VNX boards. Allegedly, there existed potentially illegal and cult-like behavior from the game's handful of players during that time period. As you'd expect, upon catching wind of this, the rest of 4chan did what they do and went in to investigate. Before we continue, I wanted to make something explicitly clear. In my hunting, it dawned on me that these allegations surfaced at a point in time that predated the year 2012. I say this because the oldest records that I've been able to dig up are from that year. Unfortunately, most of the archives, images, and audio files that we're going to get into have been lost to time.
What?
However, there are some that allow us to piece together a cohesive storyline as to what actually went on in Worlds.com. So let's talk about the game itself. A major element at the game's core was the ability for users to create and host their own customized universes.
Wait, I'm confused. What does he say? So everything here, 2012? What?
Much like Minecraft, if someone chose to do so, they could create their own server, build what they want, and invite certain players through a downloadable file that's accessible through Shaper. Many of these became archived on various websites, and even today, there are download links out there to access certain
Everything
custom
dated
worlds.
before 2012 are lost.
Effectively,
Okay.
the possibilities were endless, and harnessing
Thanks,
the
Risa Bombi.
creative freedom that they were given, players were able to create some admittedly impressive worlds. Now that it's died down, though, things have become a bit darker. A bit more controversial.
I'm not sure about Second Life having a cult.
While there are groups of people that are or might be strange in their own right, there are two that have starkly stood out to me as the most mysterious. Two users, a Jimbly and a Nexialist. Interestingly, both have crossed paths in the game. However, their stories couldn't be further apart. Contrary to Nexialist, the stories surrounding Jimbly seemed a bit more grounded in reality. But we'll get to it.
So what are this? Are those like the two raid bosses or something in here? The two different big groups?
First, I'd like to introduce you to Nexialist. According to an early 2012 blog by the name of ForgottenWorlds.com, the profile piece on him states the following. Nexialist is a regular at Worlds.com that has been trying to pull in the V and X boards to play this game. Nexialist is a successful user that's been able to get a cult following in the game, which is hard to do. He constantly reaches out to dedicated players to join him, as he seems to be called the Key Bearer.
Key Bearer.
Around the game
Okay.
This isn't even close to covering entirely who this guy is rumored to be, so allow me to pick up where they left off. According to 4chan and various message boards, Nexialist is abstruse, a shred of indecipherable mystery that's lurked Worlds.com for what some believe to be as long as the early 2000s. Encountering him,
this is wacky.
And it's been rumored that you don't actually find him, he finds you. Upon discovering you, he'll approach you without words, standing as what appears to be a lifeless corpse as you begin to quietly panic at his disturbing avatar. After the initial shock dies down, you're told to follow him, and as a result, you embark on a journey through hellish customized corridors that bear satanic symbolism and graphic imagery.
Who is this guy? Can we get an update on the guy playing Professor Utonium? Where does he fit into this grand scheme?
After your tour, Nexialist will begin sending you disturbing audio files that I wasn't able to find archives for, but if we go by descriptions from 4chaners, it's safe to assume that these sound like the distorted deaths of dying animals. Once you're scared to your wits' end and you leave the game, he already knows that you're going to go to 4chan to talk about it, because that's what he wants you to do. Spread the word, get people talking, and the next sucker that grows a sliver of curiosity and decides to check it out is his next victim. Unfortunately, this all reads like an urban legend. People have been able to capture screenshots and video of Nexialist over the years, but not much, aside from very few outliers, have been found that outlines what I'm describing. Because of that, I'd like to put a pin in this arcane figure and circle back on him later. Because
this is the game Vinesauce played, Vinny?
I'd like to bring you into.
Is it? Someone I saw on one of those threads. And he didn't encounter Nexialist?
The Hidden Worlds website that I mentioned earlier serves as a diary of the experiences that a man named George Costanza had witnessed when he first played Worlds. According to his blog, he found a bizarre network that this Jimbly guy seems to be running, and the entries on his website outline a considerable amount of information that I'd like to dive into and unpack. The very first post on the website was made on January 5th, 2012. It reads as follows. Well, I started playing this game called Worlds.com. Seemed innocent, but according to V, it has some fucked up things from the past. Everything's forgotten here, and in a group we explored the game. In the coming days we'll share our stories and pictures here. Further on that day, another post was made outlining Jimbly's supposed network and its inner workings. The game started as
interesting, Soul Eater.
We had gags while we explored the worlds, skeletons popping out, and finding Pegasus. Things a person could expect from playing Roblox or other games where your creations are welcome. But things turned bizarre. Our friend Grad, as we called him, was showing us these rooms that I mentioned, and eventually we ended up in a lobby filled with brown doors with text on them. These doors had the creator's name and a description of the level or world. This guy, Bilbo99, had messed up levels with Easter eggs everywhere, and we praised him for his creepiness. And then I noticed at the right corner of my window said erotic in
Hey, Jimbly!
This map was Jimbly's creation.
Fuck yeah, look at him. He's having fun.
Starbucks. However, things would take a turn. You see, there was a person that contacted me named Megalic. Her or his avatar was a bird or an angel. She claimed that she was new in the world, as I was, but she'd been playing this game for a week and already gotten dirty and knew what this shit was really about. To act new is a common trick to bait new players. Anyway, Jimbly had a network that was serious. How serious? To enter his network,
whoa!
To provide mugshots. For example, here's Bilbo99. There were a total
of 3
rooms filled with different mugshots of users, but room 2 was dedicated to Jimbly.
Hold on, let me go to the bathroom real quick. Give me 2 seconds, sorry to blue ball you. Alright, I'm fucking back. Ended up taking a shit. Jump scared myself with my own fart. Pretty wild series of events. Let's go.
So we scavenged for Megalic and found this.
Well, I can't do that right now, Redditor. You're gonna have to ask a mod.
One thing I found that was standing out was a user named Kelikar. She was in the porn gallery, and I compiled this. It seems like someone has stalked her, and the rooms were labeled Kelicat. This user must have been a fat cat in the network. As you can see, Kelikat's written there, so what Jimly does now is retrieving nude pictures of regulars that are still left. Megalic was the proof that we needed, since she'd only been playing for a week tops.
Wow, Jesus, Jimly.
Below this, George displays the various screen caps that he was able to take of the various mugshots of different users. Of the bunch, he was even able to grab a few of Jimly himself. Intrigued by this atypical finding, he decided that him and his group of friends wanted to investigate a bit on their new friend.
I don't think I've seen that, Cumgar.
As it turns out, there was a bit more going on with them than they initially thought. And yet another post from the same day, titled, Megalic, a man or a woman, he describes the following. Megalic's nudes that can be found in the other post seem too good to be true. Her head was cropped out and with the body of a young woman, while her mugshot shows an older woman in her 40s, and that picture's really old. What does that leave us with? She could have faked them because she doesn't want.
So how is this a cult? I'm a little confused.
A man playing as a female.
It seems like a Reddit mod using his power to get pictures.
Real email, although it's linked to a man by the name of John. John's in his 50s, seems to enjoy MMOs.
Thanks to Tier 1 Biscuit Boy.
Any interest of games, and has her only Facebook activity labeled as kids. So yes, Megalic might be or is the man posing as a fragile woman while baiting for pictures. Those pictures up there, except for his profile picture, is a year old. The pictures are from 2009, and then he used a picture of his wife to verify himself, and thought how cool it would be to send a fake picture of a pair of tits to make him look like a god in the game.
Okay. Classic John, I guess.
This network encompasses some extremely odd people. People that are impersonating others and using real-world mugshots to gain access to whatever it is that he's running. One might go as far to say that Nexialist isn't the cult leader here, but rather, it's Jimly, as most of the rumors about the former seem to relate to what we found with the latter. In a third post I'd like to focus on, titled, Jimly's Inner Circle.
Oh, sweet. Well, thank you,
George
Spooky.
Proceeds to explain the following. The last post was about this weird map, about a man going by the name Jimly that was trying to get naked pictures from regulars, or old players that were still active. So we stalked him. He hung out at a beach, but once we arrived, they'd all scatter and disappear. Thankfully, though, the friend tool and a broken avatar tool could let us teleport to them while
wow, good shit.
But that was for later. Meanwhile, we scavenged the net for Jimly. We found his website, JimlyWorlds.com.
Whoa, Jimly.
JimlyWorlds.com/pics, only to show a black screen with red typed text that said darkness.
Pretty cool website.
George reveals publicly accessible information about Jimly, including an email address, before closing his post with the revelation that also, Jimly's into traps. This can be found in his porn gallery. With this in the back of our mind, you know I couldn't just let this go. I had to get in. I had to find out if this was real.
There's no way it'd still be up.
Jimly and began my hunt.
What would it be, 7 years later?
Jeremy Erickson. I start a message and write the following. Good evening, Jimly. I've recently started playing Worlds and was interested in joining your in-game network to congregate with yourself and other players. Upon consulting with a few anons from X, I was told to reach out. I've downloaded a few worlds from your websites and am currently trying to get them working. Just let me know what I need to do when I'm in. Thanks, Jeremy.
This really doesn't seem like a cult though, it's just a weird community.
So
maybe it gets culty now.
After a trek through worlds, a lack of a response, and dwindling time to wait, it's beginning to seem like Gimbly either isn't currently active or simply doesn't play this anymore. Though, I have a hard time believing that, considering the fact that the Whois domain search on his website reveals that it was updated on November 5th of 2019. I'm not entirely sure if Gimbly's the kind of guy that would have a sudden change of heart, but if you ask me, it is a bit recent. Anyway, with that under our belt, unfortunately, heading back to the blog reveals that most of the other threads outline mundane discoveries while exploring various official and user-crafted worlds. A few notable highlights include some of Gimbly's bizarre creations.
Hey, that's Banger Sisters, I think?
Remotely relevant to our investigation.
Saw that movie a long time ago.
Even so, the discoveries surrounding Gem are nothing short of unnerving. So what's actually going on here?
He's the Prime Purple Elite. So far, I haven't really seen anything too wild here. I was expecting something fucking crazy.
The primary consensus
in fact, I don't even know what we've learned other than
was that it's a front.
These people play an old game and are kind of weird.
Rumors are powerful things. I won't deny that, but there are a few points here that I'd like to unpack. Contrary to Nexialist, Gimbly surprisingly hasn't generated much buzz online. This bizarre, cult-like network that he seems to have created
how is it cult-like though?
Effectively cements him as somewhat of a wild card in my theorization. What this guy is doing is weird. From the mugshots to the vast database of supposed network members to his secret repository of graphic imagery, it seems like he is the one actually running the rumored cult. While it doesn't deal with Satanism and death like the urban legends claimed, this guy is, whether he knows it or not, effectively catalyzing a situation in which people run the risk of being doxxed. It took George not even one full day to piece together the real identity of the wife and man behind the McGalick mugshots, and it's unclear how many other selfies that he has stashed away in the world that he's, according to the blog, been building since 2005. To be frank, aside from the lack of a response, I wasn't able to find much else surrounding this guy, and it's safe to assume that there are others like him.
I'm not sure, Roadtalk.
Aside from a few key players, is surely something that would catch the eye of somebody trying to run some sort of network under the radar. With that being said, I encourage you to make your own conclusions about him. With the evidence at hand, it does appear that at one point in time, there was something going on behind the scenes. Whether or not it still is, or if the mysterious Gimbly is still active, remains to be seen. While I haven't been able to track him down, maybe you can, but keep in mind that if you're so curious as to venture in on your own, your potential discoveries may be nefarious. But remember, we're talking about Gimbly's custom worlds.
Thanks to Tier 1 Ludoplex, and gives sub Purple Elite.
Assume that you'll be alright. But that brings us to another point of discussion. Nexialist. You might recall that I mentioned the fact that users are able to create their own worlds. This was actually a pivotal mechanic in the game and gave players an extra layer of interactivity. In a sense, I could see the developers feeling as if they're future-proofing their game.
Did not do Vid
as
Chronicles.
it allows creative freedom that was unheard of before the point of its release. With this in mind, we have to remember that most of his so-called cult activity was happening in these aforementioned user worlds. Regardless of his eerie demeanor, Nexialist was eager to give a tour of many of these. As it turns out though, he's apparently come off as quite ordinary to many players. In one post on Reddit by a user named Goomilord, they claim that they even encountered Nex and that he's merely a normal guy. Apparently, he switched his avatar to Sanic at one point and began spamming the words, "There is no cult on worlds.com" in the chat.
So he's just an RPer, like the guy just fucking RPs. Thanks to resub Dick.
So let's think about this logically.
And Ernie.
Worlds is, at its core, creepy in and of itself. The barren environments, combined with the uncanny primitive textures, naturally gives any unsuspecting players a sense of uneasiness, especially if you've caught wind of the various allegations surrounding Nex's mysterious character.
That's pretty cool.
I believe that he's playing along, leading players to the belief that he's some sort of cult mastermind as a long-running joke. The worlds he frequents are creepy on purpose, and, in my opinion, he was capitalizing on it for a bit of fun.
Yeah, obviously, for sure.
He comes off strangely when he wants to, and he executes this with a group of willing friends. The same friends that we see in the so-called cult screenshots that were captured in-game. A weird hobby, but to each their own. I'm not judging.
So there was nothing.
Now with all of that out of the way, there's still one glaring question that remains. Why does World still exist?
That's the only really weird thing about it. Like, there's no point to keep it running. That's like the only odd thing. Like, Jimbly asking for pictures of people is the sign of a lonely person wanting to make sure, like, you know, this is a person, and I'm talking to a person. That's what it strikes me as. And the porn stuff is him taking fucking Google images.
Direct your attention to the game's owner. Tom Kidron, in his many years as the world's owner, has become somewhat known.
Thanks for 5 goose subs, Lotoplex. Thank you, man.
Patent trolls essentially purchase many different elements and ideas of a particular product and squat on them for years, filing lawsuits against anyone that violates them. The reason that these people are called patent trolls mainly rests on the fact that the ones they purchase are typically what they perceive to be a sought-after and core element of a particular product. In this case, Kidron's been squatting on patent number 7,181,690,
classic patent,
which is titled System and Method for Enabling Users to Interact in a Virtual Space. This was filed on August 3rd, 2000, with further detail in the following. The invention provides a highly scalable architecture for a three-dimensional graphical multi-user interactive virtual world system. In a preferred embodiment, a plurality of users interact in a three-dimensional, computer-generated graphical space where each user executes a...
Yeah, he probably sues everyone that makes one of these kind of games.
From the perspective of that user. Sounds broad, doesn't it? That was on purpose, and he's used it. Even as of this year, there are articles all over Google explaining legal cases that Worlds Inc. has filed
World vs. Bungie
IPs such as Second Life, Blizzard, Bungie, and more. And according to a Vice article from 2015,
they ever won?
Kidron rakes in a whopping $200,000 a year from his court proceedings. This effectively explains away the server cost. When not many, if any players play your game at all, the result of this is cheap upkeep, low bandwidth, low server costs. Ergo, he's raking in cash with a positive net income. In the US, the typical patent lifespan is 20 years, so at the time of writing this, we have just short of 9 months before Kidron would either have to renew or simply let it expire. As a result of
I'm
this,
sure he renewed.
If he so chooses, he could let it run its course and retire from his relentless court proceedings. If he does, I wouldn't be surprised if the world's game goes down with it, effectively and permanently leaving this artifact of a game to die.
Someone do it for me. Did he renew it or did... Well, I already know he fucking renewed it.
So, all in all, as it turns out, Jimbly is the real enigma here. The custom worlds that he, and potentially others, have created are an indisputable testament to the underbelly of this archaic MMO. Today, it's unclear whether he's still active in the game or not.
Ooh,
even so,
a huge
the inner mechanisms of this fabled network are something that perplexes me, as I see no end goal other than to hoard a repository of images for his own enjoyment. Why he chose Worlds.com to do it is and will forever remain beyond me. Regardless, Worlds, whether still online by nefarious reasons or not, stands as somewhat of a time capsule to the primitive era of social gaming. Today, with the official non-custom Worlds, it stands as a corpse of the past, a window into what once was, and a sliver of mystical nostalgia, sending us back into a time when we all first discovered the world of the internet.
Very cute.
As far as we know, servers are, to this day, willingly being kept alive. Alongside this, The inevitable date that the game permanently goes offline is unclear, so if you're eager to experience this curiosity of old, then you better get on it soon. Stay in the official servers, and you'll be fine.
Oh, so this is not the game Vinny played. I looked when I was shitting. He played Active Worlds.
Otherwise, you'll run the risk of missing the nostalgic boats, leaving it to sail away, and for us to watch it go.
Yeah, so I feel like that was a bit off. Literally nothing cultish about that. You have a guy who's RPing, and you even mentioned that it's literally RPing, not really cultish. Jimbly, I think, is easily explained because it's clearly a lonely guy, and he asks for the pictures of anyone that plays and wants to be his friend. Not the most uncommon thing in the world. And the porn shit was just stock images, right? So it's not like I don't know where the cult was.
Just let me know.
No, I can't say I've seen that, James. I do not really like Disrupt. I've watched a lot of their stuff. I think they jump from topic to topic in the same video, and it makes it convoluted and hard to follow. It's awfully pretentious. Their visuals are really cool, but I don't think they tell the stories.
In the late 19th century, Whitechapel was known for its overcrowded slums, where many of the capital's poor and unemployed had taken refuge. Day and night, an army of policemen would constantly patrol this labyrinthine network of dim-lit streets, courts, and alleys. One such place was a narrow passage known as George Yard. Near the north entrance of this passage was a residential complex known as George Yard Buildings.
Not a very inspired name.
It was the morning of August the 7th, 1888, when an upstairs tenant named John Reeves headed out for work. Upon reaching the first floor landing, Reeves encountered the body of a woman lying upon her back in a pool of blood. Horrified by the sight, he stumbled down to the street below in search for help. Constable Thomas Barrett was the first officer on the scene.
Hey, Thomas.
He was soon joined by Dr. Timothy Killeen, who conducted a brief examination. The woman had been stabbed 39 times, primarily in the chest and abdomen. Dr. Killeen estimated that she had been dead for, quote, about 3 hours, thus placing the time of death at approximately 2:30 in the morning. The woman had likely been attacked where she was found, as no blood was found beyond the staircase landing.
As you said, Chewy,
but this was
rabid,
strange, as none of the tenants in this crowded building had heard a single cry for help or a disturbance of any kind. One exception was Amy Hewitt, a tenant who claimed to have heard a lone cry of murder. But this was early in the evening of August the 6th, and the scream had emanated from outside the complex. Hewitt further explained, "The district round here is rather rough, and cries of murder are a frequent, if not nightly occurrence."
It sounds like a real shithole.
Identified as 39-year-old Martha Tabram. Tabram was a mother of 2 and had separated from her husband many years prior.
Amy
her
Schumer.
address was 19 George Street, a common lodging house less than 300 meters from the site of her death. Tabram had made a living through prostitution, and one of her associates was a woman named Mary Ann Connolly. Connolly testified that on the evening of August the 6th, she and Tabram had been out drinking with 2 soldiers. Then, shortly before midnight, the party of four had separated. Connolly took her client into Angel Alley, while Tabram guided hers into neighboring George Yard. It was the last time she saw Tabram alive. Barely 2 hours later, Constable Barrett had spoken to a soldier loitering near the north entrance of George Yard.
Well, this is probably the guy.
He told Barrett that he was, quote, waiting for his mate who had gone away with a girl. Half an hour later, Tabram is presumed to have died. Both Connolly and Barrett were called upon to identify the soldiers, but all those accused could provide an alibi. One had been at home with his wife, another at an army base, and yet another in a completely different part of the city. This was enough for Inspector Edmund Reed, the lead investigator on the case, to abandon this line of inquiry. Connolly and Barrett, having both picked out the wrong men, they could not be trusted again, as their evidence would be worthless.
Rough.
Even if a soldier had been responsible, no one could deduce a motive. The people of Whitechapel might have been accustomed to crime and violence, but the sheer brutality of this attack
remember when this was on the
as
news.
frightening as it was confounding.
What the fuck are you, a time traveler? What? This was in the 1800s.
The that have occurred for some years. For a poor, defenseless woman to be outraged and stabbed in such a manner is almost beyond belief. These were the concluding remarks delivered at the final inquest held on August the 23rd. Only a week later, things would go from bad to worse.
I remember Jack the Ripper was in the Fate anime. Wasn't who you expected it to be, I'll tell you that much. Leave it to anime to crack the case.
And Paul were more concerned about being late for work. As such, they quickly resumed their morning commute, hoping to notify policemen along the way.
Jesus Christ.
Fortunately, Constable John Neal was just around the corner. Neal was equipped with a lantern and found the woman lying on her back with a deep cut across
Chris,
the
there is no new slapping, man.
The wound was still bleeding, and parts of her body were still warm. He was soon joined by Constable John Thane, who was sent at once to fetch a nearby doctor. Upon his arrival, shortly after 4 o'clock, Dr. Reese Llewellyn estimated that, quote, she had not been dead more than half an hour. In other words, Cross and Paul had likely found the woman mere minutes after she was killed. Furthermore, 3 officers had patrolled the vicinity just a few minutes prior. Constable Neal had last inspected Bucks Row at approximately 3:15. So too had Sergeant Henry Kirby, whereas Constable Thane had merely passed the end of the street, none of whom had seen nor heard anything amiss. Upon the body's removal to the mortuary, a shocking discovery was made.
Caramel and
apart from 2 incisions in the throat, the woman had also been, quote, disemboweled. No organs had been removed, but Dr. Llewellyn found, quote, several incisions running across the abdomen. He also believed that the killer possessed, quote, some rough anatomical knowledge, for he seemed to have attacked all the vital parts. The victim was quickly identified. Her name was Mary Ann Nichols, and she had turned 43 just 5 days before the murder. Nichols had at least 6 children, and her last known address was a common lodging house at 56 Flower and Dean Street.
Oh, that's not happening, punks.
On the night of her death, Nichols had been turned away from a lodging house on Thrall Street as she lacked the funds to pay for a bed. Seeking to raise the money through prostitution, Nichols had then ventured down Osborne Street before meeting her friend, Ellen Holland. The two of them shared a brief exchange, but Nichols was visibly drunk. When they parted ways around 2:30, Holland saw Nichols staggering eastward along Whitechapel Road.
Man, they really cover a lot of ground.
She was found dead. Apart from the body itself, the killer had left nothing in their wake. No blood trail, no murder weapon, no witnesses. Inspector Joseph Helson, the lead investigator on the case, stated that, quote, "Not an atom of evidence can be obtained to connect any person with the crime." While the Nichols case ground to a screeching halt, its similarities with the Martha Tabram case had not gone unnoticed.
Even their sketches are similar.
Had been needlessly ferocious, and there was no discernible motive. Both victims were prostitutes of roughly the same age and moved in the same circles. The only meaningful difference was their injuries. Tabram had been repeatedly stabbed, whereas Nichols had suffered multiple slash wounds. Differences aside, the prevailing assumption was that the same deranged individual had committed both murders, a conviction that would only grow stronger in the days that followed.
Thanks to the bits Y2K. Thanks to Tier 1 bros.
As the sun was rising on September 8th, a man named John Richardson was on his way to work. At 4:45, he made a quick stop at 29 Hanbury Street. He went through the entrance and out the back door by way of a cramped hallway. Richardson then sat down on the backyard steps before grabbing a knife to trim a vexing piece of leather from his boot. Once satisfied, he left the building and shut the front door behind him. About an hour later, a third-floor tenant of the same address, John Davis, plodded downstairs.
How many fucking Johns live here? Holy shit.
The front door was now wide open.
This is already the fourth John.
The one in the back was closed. When Davis went to open it, he found the bloodied remains of a woman lying on her back just below the steps. Inspector Joseph Chandler was the first officer on the
Jesus fucking Christ!
After inspection, he sent at once for a medic. Dr. George Phillips arrived at 6:30 and found the woman, quote, terribly mutilated. The throat had been, quote, dissevered deeply, whereas the abdomen had been, quote, entirely laid open. The intestines had been, quote, lifted out of the body and placed by the shoulder of the corpse.
God damn.
The body was then conveyed to the mortuary, while Inspector Chandler and Dr. Phillips conducted a sweep of the backyard.
But what does ace pilot John Richards think of this?
But just below the resting place of the
woman's
Prime
feet, Minister
they found a
John
small
Washington.
piece of cloth and 2 combs. The items had likely belonged to the victim, but it seemed to Dr. Phillips that they had been deliberately positioned and arranged by the killer. The post-mortem revealed that 2 brass rings had been forcefully removed from the victim's left hand. These rings were nowhere to be found. Portions of the victim's abdomen had also gone missing, including the womb. Dr. Phillips believed that, quote, the mode in which these portions were extracted showed some anatomical knowledge. This point was greatly expanded upon at a subsequent inquest. The injuries had been made by someone who had considerable anatomical skill and knowledge. There were no meaningless cuts. For instance, no mere slaughterer of animals could have carried out these operations. It must have been someone accustomed to the post-mortem room.
Thanks, Risa Bluthmore.
The victim was quickly identified as Annie Chapman. Chapman's date of birth is a bit uncertain, but she was roughly 47 at the time of her death. She had at least 7 children, but was tragically only survived by 2. Her last known address was a common lodging house at 35 Dorset Street. On the night of her death, Chapman had been denied accommodations as she lacked the funds to pay for a bed. She was escorted off the premises by the night watchman, who then saw her vanish into a nearby alleyway. What happened to Chapman over the next few hours, nobody knows. Her whereabouts during this time is a complete mystery. But unlike the 2 previous cases, a witness in the Chapman case might have caught a glimpse of the killer.
Oh!
At 5:30 on the morning of
Can they
September
draw them?
8th, a woman named Elizabeth Long spotted a man and a woman conversing outside 29 Hanbury Street. Long was positive that the woman she'd seen was Annie Chapman. But the man had stood with his back towards Long, so she never saw his face.
Useless.
Long did, however, manage to overhear a fragment of their conversation. The man had posed the question, "Will you?" To which the woman responded, "Yes."
Ah, wow, nice, he's in.
Now, a lasting point of contention in the Chapman case is the time of death. According to Dr. Phillips, when he arrived at 6:30, Chapman had been dead for, quote, "at least 2 hours." That would place her death at around 4:30. But according to Long, she saw Chapman alive a full hour later. Then there's the testimony of John Richardson. Richardson was the son of one of the tenants in the building. At 4:45, he made a routine checkup on the door to the basement, which had previously suffered a break-in. When he found it secure, he sat down on the backyard steps to trim a piece of leather from his boot. Even though he sat mere centimeters from the murder site, Richardson did not see a body. He was adamant on this point.
Well, yeah, it would have been hard to miss.
To notice the deceased if she had been there.
It would have been really, really hard to miss that somehow.
Even further, there's the testimony of Albert Kadosh. About 20 minutes past 5, Kadosh had gone through the backyard of 27 Hanbury Street when he heard voices coming from nearby. They were barely audible, however, and Kadosh had only made out the word "no." A few minutes later, he heard something falling against the wooden fence, dividing the 2 yards.
Why wouldn't he check that out?
There's no one way to untangle this web of contradictions, but Dr. Phillips did concede the possibility that he'd miscalculated. That, quote, "the coldness of the morning and the great loss of blood" had skewed his opinion, which was largely based on the warmth of the body. So, presuming that Dr. Phillips did miscalculate, and the recollections of Long and Kadosh were off by a few minutes, that would place Chapman's death at around 5:30.
Is that super helpful information in this case, though? I feel like that isn't really going to help very much.
The dim light of dawn would have provided the tenants of 29 Hanbury Street an unobstructed view of the murder site, some of whom had even slept with their windows open. In spite of this, the killer managed to evade detection and even made time to arrange the victim's possessions.
Yeah, it's extremely lucky, I guess.
As the tally of victims gradually mounted,
the public
grew
bear in Tier 1.
increasingly anxious.
Not the days.
They were not only frightened by the murders, but frustrated with the police and their perceived incompetence. Even across the pond were the efforts of the police fiercely criticized. The London police and detective force is probably the stupidest in the world.
What the fuck do you mean? Like, I can't even be mad at the detective force here. This guy fucking murdered a woman in the backyard of like an apartment complex where people were sleeping with their windows open and none of these idiots saw anything? More like London has the dumbest tenants in the world. Like, how do you miss that? And a guy even allegedly heard the body hit the fence and then didn't bother to check. It's absolutely not the police's problem that everyone there is fucking stupid. I don't blame them at all. They've done nothing wrong so far.
What these mocking quotes and illustrations failed to capture were the overwhelming odds stacked in favor of the perpetrator. The police were up against someone who seemingly struck without motive, someone who left no murder weapon and few witnesses. On top of that, the East End was severely overcrowded, while the police were understaffed.
I feel bad for the police.
As one newspaper put it, "A man in the East End of London is a grain of sand, as invisible and almost as much beyond identification amid the masses." At no point would this become more apparent than during the events of September the 30th.
Man, this guy is all over the place here. Jesus
On
Christ.
September the 29th, a routine Saturday meeting was held at the Socialist Club on Berners Street. When the meeting came to a close around midnight, all but a few members returned home. Those who remained proceeded to drink and socialize. Half an hour in September the 30th, Joseph Lave stepped outside to get some fresh air.
It's all Joe and John's. Oh my god.
Yard and lingered for about 10 minutes.
Are we sure his name's Jack the Ripper and not John the Ripper?
Back inside, Morris Eagle accessed the building via the same
That's
entrance.
a fucking cool name.
He too was a member of the club and had just returned after escorting a woman home. Neither of them noticed anything unusual. 20 minutes later, the sound of a horse and carriage could be heard trotting down Berners Street. The driver was Louis Diemschutz, the steward of the clubhouse. When Diemschutz drove into Dutville's yard, his pony abruptly veered to the left. When he looked down to his right, he thought he could discern something in the darkness. Diemschutz stepped down from his barrow, and after lighting a match, could see a woman lying on her side against the wall.
How would you not immediately see that?
Quote, drunk or dead, Diemschutz rushed inside the club to check on his wife. When he found her safe and sound, he alerted the other members, and a small crowd soon gathered outside.
No light? Is it so it's pitch black there?
Throat had been, quote, fearfully cut.
Even in pitch black, I feel like you'd see that.
Blood
like,
was trickling down.
Much more obviously.
Eagle, Diemschutz, and a few others promptly dispersed to find a policeman. While a growing crowd of bystanders waited for
no moonlight. I guess without moonlight,
there was
it's possible.
No sign of the perpetrator.
I didn't think of no moonlight because it could have been like a really cloudy night or some shit.
Across the city, less than a kilometer to the west, an even more ghoulish discovery was about to be made. At 1:30 of the same morning, Constable Edward Watkins patrolled an open space known as Mitre Square. Watkins' beat would take him through the square about once every 13 minutes, and on this occasion, it was deserted. But in the time it took Watkins to complete another rotation, Mitre Square was turned into a crime scene. I next came in at 1:44. I turned to the right. I saw the body of a woman lying there on her back. I saw her throat was cut and her bowels protruding. The stomach was ripped up. She was lying in a pool of blood.
Damn.
Dr. George Cicada and Dr. Frederick Brown soon converged upon the scene. They found terrible injuries inflicted upon the woman's face, throat, and abdomen. The intestines had been, quote, drawn out to a large extent and placed over the right shoulder. Among the many lacerations to the face, Dr. Brown noted that, quote, the lobe and auricle of the right ear was cut obliquely through. Based on their expert opinions, coupled with the testimony of Watkins, the woman had died within minutes of her body being found. Back in Berners,
maybe Jack the Ripper was a bunch of people. I'm sure that's a theory.
The woman in
like it was a cult
had died within minutes of her body being found. But unlike previous victims, she had only suffered injuries to the throat. There were no abdominal mutilations or anything else by which to connect the attack to the others. But the murder in Dutville's yard and the one in Mitre Square were separated by less than 1 kilometer and some 45 minutes. This allowed for a chilling possibility. It was suspected then, as it continues to be today, that when Diemschutz came clattering through the gateway, he unwittingly interrupted the murder. The killer may even have become trapped inside Dutville's yard because the gate on Berners Street was the only point of entry. Perhaps they saw an opportunity to escape when Diemschutz then rushed inside the club.
Damn you!
From there,
fucking
it would have taken them less than 15 minutes to reach Mitre Square. Plenty of time to hunt for another victim. But it must be emphasized that this is pure speculation. There is no evidence to suggest the two murders were even connected.
Thanks to resub Anonymous.
The woman in Dutville's yard was identified as 44-year-old Elizabeth Stride. Stride was a Swedish immigrant who'd lived in London for over 2 decades. Following the death of her husband, she had made a living through prostitution. Her last known address was a common lodging house at 32 Flower and Dean Street.
Thanks to resub Gentle
On the night of her death, Stride had been seen by quite an abundance of witnesses.
Asama?
First, she was seen in the company of a, quote, respectably dressed man around 11 o'clock. About 1:15 to midnight, Stride was seen talking to a man who was, quote, decently dressed and had the appearance of a clerk. Then, only a few minutes before the murder, Stride was seen in the company of a man by Constable William Smith. The man was carrying a small parcel wrapped in newspaper and was of, quote, respectable appearance. It's unclear whether these descriptions are of the same person or if Stride accosted multiple clients as the night progressed. There were other witnesses, some less credible than others, But the one that really stood out from the rest was Israel Schwartz. About 1:45, Schwartz had been walking down Berner Street. As he came up on Duttville's yard, he witnessed a man throwing a woman to the ground in front of the entrance. The woman had, quote,
he didn't try and help
3 times, but not very loudly. Schwartz would later identify this woman as Elizabeth Stride. Schwartz did not try to intervene, but opted instead to simply cross the street. That's when he spied a second man on the opposite side who was lighting a pipe.
Alright, Israel.
Woman then appeared to address the second man by shouting the name Lipsky. The pipe smoker then proceeded to follow Schwartz before eventually breaking away. When taken at face value, this story appears to suggest that the killer had an accomplice by the name of Lipsky. This was indeed the interpretation of some government officials. But Inspector Frederick Abeline, one of the lead investigators on the case, had a very different interpretation. You see, the name Lipsky had gained notoriety in 1887 when a Jewish man by the name of Israel Lipsky was convicted of murder. Owing to the publicity of that case, the surname Lipsky had become an anti-Semitic slur. Abeline therefore deduced that the man who shouted Lipsky was directing an insult at Schwartz, who was described as having a, quote, strong Jewish appearance. The man with the pipe, meanwhile, may have been an innocent passerby who became frightened along with Schwartz. Whether Abeline's interpretation is correct,
so they didn't try and help at all? This man,
nevertheless, Schwartz's account is compelling.
Straight up throws the woman down, getting ready to murder her, and they just walk by.
Elizabeth Stride was attacked.
Fucking rough. Thanks, Risa, Morthar, Swifty, and Trust Cuz.
A large crowd of spectators had ascended upon the
They could have at least started yelling, like, ah,
by their
ooh, ah, don't kill her.
Body. The post-mortem revealed that the killer had extracted a few organs, including the womb and left kidney. According to Dr. Brown, this extraction required, quote, a good deal of knowledge, which he likened to that of a butcher. By contrast, Dr. Cicada did not find any signs of, quote, great anatomical skill. The woman in Mitre Square was identified as 46-year-old Catherine Eddowes. Eddowes had at least 5 children, but after escaping her abusive husband, she had become estranged from her family. Her last known address was a common lodging house at 55 Flower and Dean Street. On the night of her death, Eddowes had been out drinking. She got so drunk that around 8:30, she was found lying on the sidewalk in Aldgate High Street, surrounded by a crowd.
Glad you liked it, Nash.
The commotion attracted a few officers, who then escorted Eddowes to a nearby police station. There, she remained locked in a cell until 1 o'clock in the morning. After being released from jail, Eddowes was likely spotted in the company of a man in the vicinity of Mitre Square. Only one of the 3 witnesses, Joseph Lavende, had paid close attention
Another
to the
fucking
couple.
Joseph.
The man had the appearance of a sailor and wore a, quote, reddish handkerchief round his neck. While Lavende did identify the woman as Catherine Eddowes, he never saw her face. Nevertheless, this sighting was only made some 10 minutes before Eddowes' body was discovered by Constable Watkins. What's so incredibly tragic about the Eddowes case is how narrowly the killer escaped justice. First of all, the only private residence in Mitre Square was occupied by a policeman and his family. They had slept right next to an upper floor window overlooking the murder site.
Jesus.
Second of all, a night watchman and retired policeman had been cleaning a warehouse within earshot
Oh my
of the murder
god.
site. He would routinely hear the footsteps of patrolling officers, yet heard nothing at the time of the murder. Finally, Constable James Harvey had glanced into Mitre Square at roughly 20 minutes to 2. That's right in between the sighting by Lavende and the body's discovery. Harvey should have had an unobstructed view of the murder site, yet he failed to notice anything suspicious. Was it too dark? Was the killer standing just a few meters away, cloaked in shadow? Did one or more witnesses get the time wrong?
Yeah, someone said
While
that
killer
the theory is that
escape,
he was a
they
policeman.
did not do so without leaving a trace.
I would
Shortly
believe
before
that.
3 o'clock,
But I do think
a
it's multiple
blood-stained piece
people.
of cloth was found near the entrance to a building a few blocks to the northeast. It proved to be a ripped portion of the apron worn by Edos. The patch had evidently been torn off and then discarded by the killer upon their escape.
It sounds cute, Hunter. Thanks to Prime G Wiz.
Now, on the wall above this patch of apron, someone had written a message. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. To this day, both the meaning and the author of this message remain in doubt. Was it written by the killer? Was it an attempt to cast suspicion upon or even away from the Jewish community? Was it completely unrelated to the murder?
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that means.
Similar questions would soon be raised by a few letters. Letters which had supposedly been written and posted by the killer. Three days before the murder of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, the Central News Agency of London received a letter in the post, the author of which claimed responsibility for the recent murders and to be planning for the quote, next job. Then, in the aftermath of the two killings, the same agency received a blood-smeared postcard. It contained details about the atrocities, which the author described as a quote, double event. On the off chance that the letters were genuine, the police decided to make them public. The hope was that someone would recognize the handwriting. Unfortunately,
that's such a weird idea.
Instead, it merely
I would
served to
never
advertise
recognize
the name
handwriting
with which the letters had been signed. Opinions on the letter's authenticity were divided back then and continue to be today.
I guess, yeah, maybe
Most
back
notably,
then.
the Dear Boss letter had promised to quote, clip the lady's ears off and send them to the police. The police never received such a package, and neither of the two victims had had their ears removed. But you may recall that the right earlobe of Eddowes had been, quote, cut obliquely through. Was this a botched attempt by the killer to keep their promise? Or was it merely one of numerous lacerations with no connection to the letter?
It's a tier 1 elite typo.
The contents of the letters notwithstanding, modern linguistic analysis does suggest that they were penned by the same hand. So, hoaxes or not, the authors were likely one and the same. However, the handwriting bore, quote, no resemblance at all to the message written above the torn patch of apron. Now, the publication of the letters inspired an onslaught of copycats. Agencies all over London were soon inundated with correspondence imitating the other two. But at least one of them might have been genuine, not because of the contents of the letter, but rather the contents of a box with which it was delivered. On October the 16th, a man named George Lusk received a small package in the post. Lusk was the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, a small group of local tradesmen who sought to identify the killer. The package consisted of a letter and a cardboard box containing half a kidney. The doctors who examined the kidney all agreed that it was human, but whether it was the same left kidney removed from the body of Eddowes could not be determined. It could, for instance, have been an elaborate hoax by a medical student or someone with access to human organs.
It's crazy. Trolls existed all the way back then.
While insisted that the kidney did belong to the victim and that they had fried and eaten the other half. A popular theory at the time, and one that still is today, was that some of the letters had been fabricated by the press. According to Chief Inspector John Littlechild, the letters were, quote, a smart piece of journalistic work. Assistant Commissioner Robert Anderson dismissed the letters as, quote, the creation of an enterprising London journalist. Meanwhile, Chief Constable Melville On the morning of November the 9th, a merchant and property owner named John McCarthy was going through his bookkeeping.
Hey, John.
McCarthy was the landlord of Miller's Court, and the tenants of room 13 had fallen behind on their rent. McCarthy sent at once for his assistant, Thomas Boyer, to collect the money at 11:15. After knocking twice without response, Boyer went around the corner to peer through a window.
Thanks to resub.
But his view was obstructed by a coat or curtain, so Boyer had to reach through a broken window pane to pull it aside. That's when he saw the severely mutilated body of a woman lying upon a bed in the corner of the room. Miller's Court was soon crawling with police, but the door to room 13 was locked and had to be forced open with a pickaxe. What they found inside was truly the stuff of nightmares. The sight we saw, I cannot drive away from my mind. It looked more like the work of a devil than of a man. The whole scene is more than I can describe. I hope I may never see such a sight again. Dr. George Phillips described the body as, quote, cut all to pieces. Dr. Thomas Bond described the woman's face as, quote, hacked beyond recognition. The abdomen had been, quote, emptied of its viscera, while the throat had been, quote, severed all round, down to the bone. The body had been monstrously disfigured, with loose organs dispersed all around it. The room itself was sparsely furnished and offered little in the way of clues. 2 tables, 1 or 2 chairs, and a small cabinet.
But what about the security cameras?
Amongst the ashes of a fireplace, the police found patches of burned clothing. Had the killer tried to dispose of evidence, or had it merely been used for warmth and light? The victim was identified almost immediately. Her name was Mary Jane Kelly, and she was the tenant of 13 Miller's Court. But nearly everything about Kelly's life is shrouded in mystery. She was presumably of Welsh or Irish descent and in her mid-20s, making her the youngest victim by far.
Thanks to the gift of
given
Heaven
that
Sword.
no matching records of a Mary Jane Kelly
Yeah, it's
have been
everywhere
found,
enough.
it's probable that she was using a fake identity. In any case, Kelly had not been living alone. Up until a few days before the murder, she had cohabited with a man named Joseph Barnett. They had only separated on October the 30th because Barnett disapproved of Kelly's prostitution and the people with whom she associated. But they did see each other again. On the evening of November the 8th, Barnett paid Kelly a visit. Upon his arrival, he found Kelly in the company of a woman who was just about to leave. Unfortunately, there are conflicting accounts about who this woman was, when Barnett arrived, and how long he stayed. If we choose to believe Barnett, he arrived at some point between 7 and 7:45 and left before 9 o'clock. Shortly before midnight, Kelly was spotted in the company of a man by her neighbor, Mary Ann Cox. When Cox passed the couple, they were about to enter Kelly's room. Cox bid Kelly goodnight, but she was, quote, very much intoxicated and barely able to respond. Once they had gone inside, Cox could hear Kelly singing. When Cox then left the court about an hour later, Kelly could still be heard singing. By 2 o'clock, Kelly had apparently ventured back outside, where she was spotted by a man named George Hutchinson. The two of them were supposedly well acquainted, and Kelly had asked if he could spare a few points. But Hutchinson was broke, and Kelly was desperate for money, so they soon parted ways. Moments later, Hutchinson observed Kelly being accosted by a well-dressed man. The two of them had a seemingly jovial interaction and began walking north.
Chasing George.
Hutchinson found it suspicious that such a well-dressed man would seek the company of a woman like Kelly. As such, when the couple passed him by, he scrutinized the man's appearance. He was, for instance, carrying a pair of gloves in his right hand and a small parcel in his left. Hutchinson decided to shadow the couple as they proceeded to Miller's Court.
Wow,
Before they vanished up the court, the man handed Kelly a red handkerchief, and she had supposedly told him, "All right, my dear, come along. You will be comfortable." Hutchinson remained in the vicinity until 3 o'clock, but neither Kelly nor the man reappeared.
So he just sat there for an hour?
Cox returned home. In stark contrast to the loud singing upon her last departure, Cox was now struck by the complete absence of sound and light from Kelly's room. Finally, at approximately 4 o'clock, a tenant above and a woman across from Kelly's room heard cries of murder. The voice was that of a woman, and it appeared to emanate from nearby.
And they didn't do anything?
Meanwhile, other denizens of the court heard no screams at all. According to Dr. Bond, Kelly died between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. Dr. Phillips placed the time of death a few hours later. But some witnesses were quite adamant that they had seen or even spoken to Kelly as late as 8 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind that her body was discovered at 11:15. These contradictions are difficult to reconcile, and the precise time of death eludes us to this day.
Well,
Following the murder of Mary Ann Nichols, a rumor began to circulate that someone called Leather Apron was in the habit of abusing prostitutes. The name quickly made its way into the press, and soon enough it became synonymous with the killer. In fact, Leather Apron was the predominant pseudonym before Jack the Ripper. But the man identified as Leather Apron was soon cleared of all suspicion. His real name was John Picer, and he was in a different part of London on the night when Nichols was attacked. This misguided manhunt is somewhat emblematic of the whole investigation. The police pursued even the most tenuous of leads due to a lack of evidence, and
they should have just hung out at prostitutes' places.
They interviewed thousands, investigated hundreds,
just post up like an officer at the main prostitute hotspots.
In the words of Inspector Frederick Abeline, "Theories. We were lost almost in theories. There were so many of them." In an effort to narrow down the search, the police used a primitive form of criminal profiling. The idea was to analyze the available evidence to try and gauge what sort of person had committed the crimes. This profile was prepared by Dr. Thomas Bond, and he described the Ripper as a strong, middle-aged man with an inoffensive appearance who dressed respectably. Bond's most controversial
Jesus, who is that one? Peter Pan?
Possessed, quote, "no scientific nor anatomical knowledge." This stood in direct opposition to the opinions of his peers, most of whom ascribed the Ripper with at least a basic understanding of anatomy. Based on the witness accounts, the Ripper was a man of average height with a medium to stout build in his late 20s to mid-30s. He wore dark clothes, including a hat of some sort, and had a mustache. But this sort of aggregation or tabulation of accounts can be quite deceptive. Not only are many details inconsistent, but they could be describing entirely different people. For all we know, none of the witnesses ever laid eyes on Jack the Ripper. So much is up for debate that one can build a case against almost any suspect. Some have even entertained the possibility that the Ripper was a woman or possibly a man disguised as a woman. While Jill or Jackie the Ripper is an interesting theory, it has failed to achieve any widespread support. What is rarely in dispute is that the Ripper was either a resident of or otherwise familiar with the East End. After all, he managed to narrowly evade capture on multiple occasions, which implies intimate knowledge of byways and patrol routes. He likely had some form of employment as the murders were committed around weekends and public holidays, and he may have had some degree of anatomical knowledge.
I don't think he did.
With this unshakable profile in hand,
I think he's a
let's
fucking
take
idiot.
a closer look at a few suspects. The question is, where do we even begin? According to criminal profiler and FBI Special Agent John Douglas, the Ripper was not only a local, but was likely interviewed by the police. If Douglas
Of course there's still much slapping.
On the morning
there's
of
no new
August
ones
the
yet.
31st,
Like the
Charles
recent TV
Cross
beatdown.
left his home on Dovton Street and headed for work. When he turned into Bucks Row, he happened upon the body of Marianne Nichols. Moments later, he was joined by Robert Paul, and events transpired as previously described. Despite his proximity to the crime, Cross appears to have escaped suspicion from both the press and the police. He was evidently seen as the innocent passerby that he appeared to be. But in recent years, that perception has been challenged. The argument is that Cross was in the act of committing the murder when he was interrupted by the approaching footsteps of Paul. Cross then concealed the murder weapon and portrayed himself as someone who just found the body. The injuries inflicted upon Nichols would be consistent with an interruption, as they were less severe than those of later victims. What's interesting about Cross
That is a good point.
He likely testified under a false name. He claimed to be employed as a carman, and his address was given as 22 Dovton Street. But surviving records show that in 1888, this address was occupied by a man named Charles Lechmere.
Maybe he forgot his last
As a
name.
carman, and on at least one occasion went by the name Charles Cross, as it was the surname of his stepfather. It is now widely believed that Charles Lechmere was the man who appeared at the inquest, and that he assumed the name of his stepfather when he testified. His motivation for doing so has been the source of much speculation. Was
It was
he
him.
trying to conceal his identity?
I'm convinced.
Or was it merely a force of habit? After all, contemporary examples of people doing the exact same thing are not difficult to find.
Easy gives to begin, Steve.
The most compelling evidence against Lechmere is that his morning commute between home and work roughly coincides with the time and place of the murders.
It's definitely this fucking
Except
guy.
for the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, who
Yeah, but they're
were
not
killed
far.
on Sunday, the only day when Lechmere would have been free from work. Not only that, but all the murders were committed around weekends and public holidays. Why would a man who supposedly timed the murders with his morning commute gravitate towards days of rest? In any case, Lechmere's mother lived a few blocks south of Burness Street, the neighborhoods around which is also where Lechmere spent his childhood. As such, it's speculated that Stride and Eddowes were killed after Lechmere paid a late-night visit to his mother. While he claimed to be employed at a delivery firm known as Pickford's, there are no surviving records of his employment. If he did work for Pickford's, there is a fair chance that he delivered meat and would thus have been exposed to slaughter and blood on a daily basis. Lechmere remained in East London until his death in 1920 at the age of 71. While there is no evidence of Lechmere ever being suspected by the police, it is difficult to believe that he was completely overlooked. Many case files have not survived, so any doubts investigators might have had could have long since disappeared. Now, a witness who definitely attracted attention was Joseph Barnett.
Yeah, but it was Charles Cross. I believe it was Charles Cross. In fact, I know it was. After hearing that, nothing else could convince me otherwise. Until LEMMiNO makes a great case for Joseph Barnett
was the man who lived with Mary Jane Kelly up until a few days before the murder. He and Kelly had supposedly met around April of 1887, and they eventually moved to 13 Miller's Court. Barnett was employed as a fish porter, but for reasons unknown, he lost his job between July and August of 1888. From that point onwards, the couple struggled to pay rent, and Kelly resorted back to prostitution. Now, those who believe that Barnett was the Ripper view his loss of employment as a turning point. The argument is that Barnett was so overcome with guilt and anguish for driving Kelly back to prostitution that he went on a murder spree, murdering one local prostitute after another in a desperate attempt to frighten Kelly off the streets. While most of this is pure speculation, it is true that Barnett disapproved of Kelly's prostitution. You may recall that Barnett separated from Kelly on October the 30th because he disliked the prostitutes with whom she associated. Kelly never went on the streets when she lived with me. She would never have gone wrong again, and I should never have left if it had not been for the prostitutes stopping by the house. This might further explain why Kelly was the Ripper's final and most viciously mutilated victim, the implication being that Barnett felt rejected by Kelly and wanted revenge for the breakup. According to Barnett, he did pay Kelly a visit on the evening of November the 8th, but they had parted on quote, friendly terms. He then supposedly went home, played a card game until 12:30 before going to bed.
Did he play Yu-Gi-Oh?
Now, Kelly is presumed to have died in the early hours of November the 9th, so Barnett could have returned to Miller's Court sometime after midnight. While the police did subject him to 4 hours of interrogation, Barnett was ultimately released without charge.
Thanks you so Disraeli. The bit Steve.
Then there's the matter of the locked door. When the police arrived at Miller's Court, they had to force the door open with a pickaxe. This raised an important question. How did the killer lock the door behind him? According to Barnett, the key to room 13 had been missing for some time. Because of this, he and Kelly would quote, open the door by reaching through the broken window. The door was said to be equipped with a quote, catch lock, and evidently locked itself upon being closed. If that's true, mystery solved. But even if the door was not self-locking, there's still an obvious solution. All the killer would have had to do is observe Kelly using the window trick and then employ that same technique to fasten the door upon leaving. But those who favor Barnett as the Ripper offer yet another solution. The key never went missing. Instead, Barnett is said to have stolen the key and then used it on the night of the murder. These solutions are all equally valid, and it's impossible to know which one is correct.
Yeah, but it's with Charles Cross.
There is a slight variation of this theory which states that Barnett did murder Kelly, but was not the Ripper. Instead, he merely emulated the Ripper to deflect attention away from himself. Once again, this is pure speculation, but the murder of Kelly did somewhat differ from the rest, in that it was committed indoors. Barnett remained in the East End until his death in 1926 at the age of 68. While it's only natural for suspicion to fall upon witnesses and acquaintances, Victorian detectives did pursue other lines of inquiry. One prominent theory was that the Ripper suffered from insanity, and a prime suspect in that category is Aaron Kosminski.
Who? I haven't heard that name yet. Have we? I don't remember Kosminski.
The Whitechapel murders investigation was overseen by numerous high-ranking officers within the Metropolitan Police. One of them was Assistant Commissioner Robert Anderson. Upon his retirement, Anderson repeatedly and unequivocally stated that Jack the Ripper had been identified. There was no doubt whatever as to the identity of the criminal. Without disclosing the name of the suspect, Anderson described him as a, quote, low-class Polish Jew who was, quote, safely caged in an asylum. He'd been identified by a witness who was described as, quote, the only person who ever had a good view of the murderer. This unnamed witness had supposedly refused to testify because the suspect was, quote, a fellow Jew. I am almost tempted to disclose the identity of the murderer, but no public benefit would result from such a course. While Anderson never revealed the name of the suspect, his colleagues were a bit more forthcoming. Chief Inspector Donald Swanson revealed that his surname was Kosminski.
Thank you, Donald.
Yet another high-ranking officer, Melville McNaughton, described Kosminski as a homicidal and misogynistic resident of Whitechapel. Surviving records show that an Aaron Kosminski was admitted to a psychiatric hospital in 1891. Aaron was indeed from Poland, he was Jewish, and had lived in Whitechapel. He suffered from auditory hallucinations and a paranoid fear of being fed by others. He was trained as a barber, but had, quote, not attempted any kind of work for years.
Thanks to Resub Hexmania.
It's unclear when his mental health began to decline, but upon being institutionalized, Aaron was deemed to be harmless. He was, quote, quiet and well-behaved, and, quote, apathetic as a rule. Only on rare occasions would he get, quote, excited and violent. However, before his confinement, Aaron had once threatened his sister with a knife. The case against him largely hinges upon the claims made by Anderson, Swanson, and McNaughton, especially the claim that an unnamed witness identified a suspect named Kosminski.
There had to be a witness at some point here.
That suspect
These murders were committed in front of fucking apartments.
With Aaron Kosminski. For instance, McNaughton stated that the suspect had been, quote, removed to a lunatic asylum about March 1889. Aaron was first confined in 1891. Swanson wrote that the suspect had been, quote, sent to the asylum and died shortly afterwards. Aaron was still alive at the time and spent nearly 3 decades in psychiatric care. As such, it is possible that the suspect Kosminski was someone other than Aaron Kosminski. It's also possible that these inconsistencies were mere lapses in memory. After all, these events were recounted years or even decades after the fact, and McNaughton even confessed to writing solely from memory.
Thanks for resub, Chad.
Regardless of the suspect's true identity, Anderson was the only one who seemed convinced of his guilt. McNaughton ultimately favored a different suspect and stated that, quote, many homicidal maniacs were suspected, but no shadow of proof could be thrown on any one. Inspector Edmund Reed was of the same opinion. Now we have Sir Robert Anderson saying that Jack the Ripper was a Jew. That I challenge him to prove. I challenge anyone to prove that there was a tittle of evidence against man, woman, or child. So when Anderson wrote that there was, quote, no doubt whatever as to the identity of the criminal, he merely expressed his personal opinion. There was in fact ample doubt and no consensus amongst the police. But in recent years, Aaron Kosminski has been resurrected as a prime suspect due to a controversial DNA analysis. Okay, so back in 1888, Acting Sergeant Amos Simpson
they found his old cum sock?
Stolen a blood-stained shawl from the crime scene of Catherine Eddowes. This shawl was then passed down from one generation to the next before being submitted for DNA testing in 2011. DNA samples were extracted from the shawl and then compared against maternal descendants of Eddowes and Kosminski.
What?
In both cases, it was a match. If the subsequent news coverage is to be believed, the mystery has now been, quote, definitively solved. Aaron Kosminski was Jack the Ripper. But as you can imagine, it's never quite that simple.
That's fucking
First of
wild.
All, the provenance or chain of custody of the shawl is severely lacking. There is no evidence of a shawl being found at the crime scene, nor is there any evidence of Simpson ever being at the crime scene. Furthermore, a destitute woman like Eddowes is unlikely to have owned such an expensive item. Second of all, the type of DNA used to identify Eddowes and Kosminski was mitochondrial DNA, the powerhouse of the cell. And this type of DNA is passed down through the female line and is not unique to any one individual. Thousands can share the same mitochondrial DNA, which means it can't be used to pinpoint a specific person. In the words of a geneticist, based on mitochondrial DNA, one can only exclude a suspect. So to say that the mystery has been definitively solved is widely inaccurate. There's still plenty of room for doubt. So, to recap, a suspect named Kosminski was identified by an unknown witness. This was enough to convince at least one senior officer of his guilt. That suspect may have been Aaron Kosminski, a man who was largely non-violent but once threatened his sister with a knife. Aaron can neither be incriminated nor eliminated by the DNA evidence. He spent the rest of his life in psychiatric care and died in 1919 at the age of 53. Kosminski was not the only suspect advanced by a high-ranking officer. A completely different suspect who still falls into the same category is Francis Tumblety.
Damn, that guy looks cool. I still think it's Charles Cross.
2 days
I really
before the
do.
murder of Mary Jane Kelly,
all that made so much
an
sense for
American
Cross.
physician named Francis Tumblety was arrested in London. As you can probably tell from this photograph, Tumblety was quite an eccentric character. He was born in Ireland around 1833, but was raised in the United States. From an early age, Tumblety gained a reputation for being a medicaster or quack doctor. He engaged in all sorts of medically dubious practices and advertised himself as the Indian herb doctor. He promised to cure anything from dyspepsia and scurvy to cancer and blindness using nothing but medicinal herbs.
Man, some things never change. There's still people just like this.
He was either accused or convicted for crimes like theft and assault, attempt to induce a miscarriage, and manslaughter of a patient. He was even implicated in the assassination of US President Abraham Lincoln, but was ultimately cleared of suspicion. Now, in the early 1860s, Tumblety is alleged to have hosted a lavish dinner party.
What are you talking about? Did you even message the Miniature Journey?
And Tumblety
just message the support man. Why are you messaging Twitch mods?
Of women. Furthermore, he showcased a cabinet
they
in
weren't
his
involved
office
in it. Just message the support
man. A vast collection of jars filled with anatomical specimens, some of which were said to contain the wombs of, quote, every class of woman. In 1869, Tumblety ventured across the Atlantic and visited England for the first time. By his own admission, he roamed the streets of London until he became familiar with every part of it.
It's been weeks, no reply. I know that's wrong because the posters would have only got there about a week ago.
And had a few skirmishes with the police.
Just resend the email then, man.
After a few more voyages between the old world and the new, Tumblety found himself in London in the autumn of 1888. The purpose of his visit and whereabouts at the time of the murders are completely unknown. Tumblety never stayed in one place for long and made frequent use of false names. There is a story of a mysterious lodger leaving behind a blood-stained shirt near the murder site of Elizabeth Stride. This supposedly happened on the night of the murder, and some believe that this lodger was Francis Tumblety.
Nah, I think it's definitely Charles Cross.
There is no firm evidence of that, and the entire incident is fraught with uncertainty.
Oh sweet, well thanks Chainsaw, glad you liked it.
What we do know is that Tumblety was arrested in London on November the 7th. According to the press, as well as Tumblety himself, he was arrested on suspicion of being Jack the Ripper. 2 days later, Mary Jane Kelly was found brutally murdered, and it's unclear whether Tumblety was still in custody or had already been released on bail. Nevertheless, he was ultimately charged with 4 counts of gross indecency, which had nothing to do with the murders. But Tumblety had no intention of standing trial. Instead, he made his way across the English Channel, boarded a steamship under a false name, and fled back to America. He was pursued by detectives and kept under surveillance, but his offenses were, quote, not extraditable. As such, Tumblety remained in the United States and never returned to England.
That is suspicious.
Francis Tumblety was a misogynistic medicaster who was in London at the time of the murders. He even showcased a collection of wombs, and the Ripper did indeed extract the womb from 2 of his victims. I mean, he sounds like the perfect suspect. Perhaps a bit too perfect. There is no doubt that Tumblety was in London in 1888, but the claim that he was a misogynistic collector of human body parts is extremely dubious. It can be traced back to a single article from December of 1888, featuring an interview with a man named Charles Dunham. Dunham had a long history of spreading misinformation and has been described as a pathological liar, a forger, and a conman. He was even convicted of perjury. As such, there is every reason to believe that this story is a complete fabrication.
Yeah, I still was never convinced. I always thought it was Charles Cross.
Furthermore, Tumblety was both older and taller than the men described by most witnesses. Tumblety was said to be, quote, an enormous man who liked to dress in flamboyant and militaristic outfits. It's difficult to imagine a tall, pompous American sneaking around the streets of Whitechapel virtually undetected. On the other hand, it's unclear which, if any, of the witness accounts can be trusted. Then there's the matter of the rings.
Scott and the Prime
You may
Club
recall that 2 brass rings were stolen from the body of Annie Chapman. It's suspected that the rings were taken by the Ripper to be kept as trophies. Now, upon his death in 1903, Tumblety left behind a quite impressive estate. But among his many valuable possessions were a pair of inexpensive imitation rings.
Oh, shit.
Could they have been the same rings taken from the body of Chapman?
That's pretty interesting.
It's possible. It's also impossible to prove.
God damn it. I still think it's Charles
Chief
Cross.
Inspector John Littlechild regarded Tumblety as a, quote,
Thanks for
very
some
likely
thirsty.
suspect. And it's not difficult to see why. If the many rumors about him are to be believed,
first I heard of that oily
opportunity and motive to commit the murders.
Yeah, send an email to
therein
it,
lies
Scander,
the
and they'll get it to you.
Much of what
But
we know
yeah,
about
it'll be there
Tumblety
pretty soon, I
is founded
imagine.
upon unsubstantiated rumors. Tumblety himself was an attention-seeking charlatan with no qualms about lies and deception. With a suspect like that, one can never be certain where the lies end and the truth begins.
I still think Charles Cross.
To theorize about the identity of Jack the Ripper is to navigate a minefield of hearsay, sophistry, and contradictions. Entire encyclopedias have been dedicated to the compilation of suspects, and with every passing year, they seem to grow ever more expansive. Even though there are hundreds of potential suspects, only a dozen or so are worth more than a brief consideration. Some of the more sensational contenders include famous authors and artists, as well as high-ranking officers.
I better see James Corden on here as a suspect.
But these grand conspiracies and elaborate deceptions seem hopelessly contrived against the sheer simplicity of a suspect like Charles Lechmere, an unassuming delivery man on his way to work.
I really think it's Charles Cross, yeah.
I remain unconvinced that Jack the Ripper has even been identified as a suspect. The few covered in this video are probable candidates, but it's still possible to make persuasive arguments against them. The same is true of all those left out by necessity. None of them can offer anything more than ambiguity and circumstance. With a suspect pool in the hundreds, that might seem improbable. But London was the largest city in the world, home to the largest port in the world. It was a city of millions, with a large population of poorly documented drifters. It's not difficult to imagine one lowly sailor, butcher, medic, soldier, barber, merchant, forger, blending into the slums of Whitechapel like a grain of sand.
God, that was good. But we all know it was Charles Lechmere. I think we can all know. The intellectuals will know. Charles Cross, Charles Lechmere are the same person. Charles Cross is the name he went by to testify, instead of his real name, which was Charles Lechmere. That was very... Alright, let's run it! There's the Prime Krugi.
They say that nothing on the internet is ever truly gone. One of the most compelling aspects
That's
of
wrong.
this very
All of my
resource
old
that we
anime
use every
music
day
videos are gone.
is the fact that, for the
Can't get
most
it back.
part, Any and everything that's ever been posted online can be archived.
Nope, not my
forever, like a never-ending diary.
I've been trying for years to find my old videos.
This allows the possibility for an incomprehensible amount of information gathered from the past and present, available to us at any given time.
Story and Paradox.
Over on Reddit, a lot of strange, disturbing, and even depressing things have played out over the years.
Thank you, Canada Matt. Appreciate the 5 gift subs.
Stories and events to dig through. Within this vast sea of archives, though, is one that really hit home for me back when it happened, as it, in real time, merged the realms of the internet and reality, ultimately leaving people absolutely baffled at the resolution.
I'll be the judge of that.
Because tonight, we're going to head back in time to 2016 to explore the incredibly bizarre and heartbreaking story of a Redditor by the name of Jason in Hell.
Jason in Hell. That's pretty extreme.
On the late evening of October 28th of 2016, a Redditor named Jason in Hell would make a sudden post to the relationship advice subreddit, seeking counsel regarding a cheating situation that played out between his wife and neighbor. His post is titled, "I'm having a hard time coping with my wife having cheated on me with our neighbor."
Damn, she cheated with a 51-year-old dude?
Immense detail.
He must be slinging
catching
meat.
His wife cheating on him over a year prior. At the time, though, little did everyone know that this would be the spearhead of the absolute turmoil that he and his family would soon begin to endure.
Hey, thanks. Goddamn, Car Stark. Thank you. Appreciate the bits.
So, quick side note before we move on. I did a story narration back in my Redditor Escapes the Cult video, and you guys seem to like it. For this one, we're going to lay things out largely the same way. We'll go through Jason's full story before diving into the aftermath of how things turned out. The original post is about an 8-minute read, so if you'd like to grab a snack or drink before we get into it, now would be the time.
I was hoping for just the cliff notes, but that's okay. Fuck it, we're already here. I'll let it ride.
I'm having a hard time coping with my wife having cheated on me with her neighbor. It has been 476 days since I confronted her about it. How do I know? Because every time I catch myself thinking about it, I tell myself, it's only been X days. Maybe you won't think about it tomorrow.
That sounds highly unlikely.
So
he's not an anime character. No one does that.
I had a new project and new responsibilities at work. I was working a lot of hours, 60 plus per week, and was noticeably stressed. It was in May of 2015 that I noticed that she had a password on her phone. When confronted about it, she told me it was just because she was planning my Father's Day present and didn't want me to ruin the surprise. About a week later, she came to me and told me that she felt guilty keeping a big secret from me and told me that she was having our neighbor, a contractor, build a home office for me as my present. It struck me as odd, as in our 6 years together she's never said she felt guilty about anything and always insists that she never regrets anything in her life. Time goes on, her phone is still password protected, and things don't feel right. I see her using her phone and smiling to herself more and more often, but when I ask her what she's doing, she says nothing and puts her phone away. So one morning, I wait for her to get in the shower, and I grab her phone before it requires the password. I go through her messages and find that she's texting the neighbor. I'm all covered in frosting.
What?
You want to lick it off?
What is this, porn? Like, what are you talking? There's no fucking way this is real. What? Why is everyone saying this is real? Who? So was she actually covered in frosting? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Raided a kid's birthday party and fell and flopped around in the cake? I highly doubt this is real. The guy starts by saying, it's been 476 days since I found this. I know because I've counted every day. Telling myself I'll forget about it tomorrow or whatever. That does not sound real at all. I'll let it ride, but this is very fishy at best.
There were no other messages to the neighbor, but I found out later that was because she had set up her phone to delete messages after a certain amount of time. I felt uncomfortable with it, but I knew she had a perverted sense of humor, and I thought she would never do anything to hurt me. More time goes by, and the neighbor is spending more and more time at our house, but the office is being completed slower and slower. I can't help but worry that something isn't right, so I start checking her location using Google Timeline. It was at this point that I realized that there are large gaps in her GPS history because she was turning off her phone's GPS.
Jesus.
Fast forward to July.
So this guy's basically a stalker.
The paranoia is driving me nuts, so I tell her that I need to install a new antivirus on her phone. While she has it unlocked for me, I install an anti-theft software so I can remotely turn the GPS back on and set up AT&T message backup and restore so I can read all of her text messages.
Does a program like that even exist?
Computer.
That sounds like a convenient tool in like a bad CW movie.
My 2 kids, so my wife
for people that don't understand technology.
The day to herself. I watch my wife's activity from work as she spends the day trying to meet up with a neighbor.
That exists?
But is unsuccessful because he's busy with another job site. That night, we get the kids back from my mom's house and we go to dinner with a neighbor, his girlfriend, and his son. My wife and his girlfriend are having a good time, drinking, laughing, and just joking around. His girlfriend mentions that she'd like to see Magic Mike. I say it's a good idea and I'll watch the kids so my wife and her can go. So my wife and her go, and the neighbor and I go back to my house so the kids can play video games together.
Oh shit, he beats his ass.
The kids are back in my son's room playing games, and the neighbor's sitting across from me on the other couch. It's at this point that my wife starts texting him. She's describing sex acts that she would like to perform with him, and he's reciprocating. She tells him to check his Snapchat, and at the same time, I get a Snapchat from her too, and it's her fingering herself in a bathroom stall. They keep
is he married to fucking Susie Squirts a lot? Like who does that?
So in my head,
what?
I already planned to pretend to leave and circle back to catch them. But then they tell each other they love each other, and it's all I can do not to leap off the couch and knock him out. But I contain myself and continue reading the conversation unfolding in front of me. Then he tells her, "You're my girl now," to which she replies, "Always have been," ending with him writing, "And always will be."
This is fanfic. This is literally fucking fanfic. Holy shit.
My wife and the neighbor's girlfriend return from the movie, and I ask them politely to sit down. I then ask the kids to stay in my son's room and shut the door. I return to the living room and confront my wife and the neighbor. I say, "So you two love each other,
I really
huh?"
appreciate the huge
And
bits.
my wife
I'm
goes
glad you
into
had fun
full-blown
tonight.
denial mode, and the neighbor's girlfriend starts smacking him. I ask my wife if she's been texting him. She says no, so I show her the text messages. She admits to it but says it was the first time that it went that far. I ask my wife if she sent him pictures. She says no, so I show her the picture, and she admits it but says it was the first time. I ask her if she's having sex with him, and she says no. Because I didn't want to catch them having sex together, I didn't have evidence to prove her wrong, so that one stayed unresolved. I tell her that I'm leaving her, and she tells me that she'll make sure that I never see my kids again if I do. She planned on using the fact that I had attempted suicide in high school to prove me unfit to have children. She continues to say that it was my fault for being so busy with work and stressed out that she just wanted someone she could talk to. Then she gives me an ultimatum to decide what I'm going to do, or she'll decide for me. The neighbor's girlfriend starts defending the two of them, saying that it couldn't have been that serious if they weren't having sex, and that my wife and I are too perfect together to let this break us up. The neighbors go home, and my wife and
okay, yeah, that sounds like something normal that happens.
We go to bed separately, having not resolved anything. We keep going back and forth on the subject all weekend, and finally settle on we were going to separate temporarily while we figure out what we want. I was going to stay in the house, and she was going to take the kids and go to her mom's house. That Monday I go to work, and I get a text from her in the middle of a meeting with my bosses, stating that she had explained things to our kids, but they were upset, and I needed to explain things to them also. I get home from work to find my kids crying. She had told them that mommy had to move out because dad was mad at her. When my son wanted to stay with me, she told him that he can't.
Oh, it's getting real dark.
My son put it together that if mommy has to move out because I'm mad at her, and he must move out, then I must have been mad at him too. My daughter was crying because my son was, but I don't think that she was old enough to understand what was happening. It was at this moment I realized that she was going to drag the kids through hell if I left her, so I swallowed my feelings and begged her to stay. She agreed and insisted that I apologize to our neighbor since we were still going to need to hang out with him because our sons are good friends.
Thanks for some water.
I hate it, but I do it anyway. We still hang out with them from time to time, and they come to our various birthday and holiday parties, but I'd do anything for my kids, and I behave civil every time. Things died down for a while. I still think about it constantly. I worry how I can keep from making her so unhappy that she cheats on me again. Then, almost a year after the original incident, around Father's Day again, she sends him pictures again. She claims that it was an accident, and that she meant to send them to me instead. I don't fully believe her, but I move on anyway.
Thanks for resub, Prater.
Things have been quiet on that front for about 4 months now, but I still think about it constantly.
In
this
this video,
is going to
Dion?
sound stupid, but I feel like I have a part of my brain that I can't shut off, that's always thinking. I used to use that to solve programming problems, and it made me very good at my job, but ever since this incident, the only thing it thinks about is her and him, and if I did the right thing. My job performance has suffered, and I feel like I haven't gotten sleep in months. I'm afraid that after this much time, and the fact that I begged her back, that to say that I want a divorce now would only make her more vindictive towards my kids and I just feel like I put myself so deep in a hole that I could never get back out. I haven't really talked to anyone about this. I didn't want to talk to my mom about it because I felt like she would treat my wife differently, and I didn't need the two fighting.
Alright, now I'm all caught up on the lore.
I tried talking to one friend about it, but his advice was to put my trust in God, but that was not much solace for me as I'm an atheist.
That sounds like a Redditor for sure.
Or how to move on from this.
And then I also spit in my friend's face and said wubba lubba dub dub.
In response to Jason, users chimed in with a mixed bag of emotions. To get the full picture on all the flack that he was getting for this, here are a few examples. I cannot believe you stayed with her. I cannot believe you begged
I don't really
her
care about the Redditor response, I just want to know where this story goes, to be honest.
Smack the shit out of that old man. Go to an attorney and talk about ways to get custody of your kids. Your wife's a twat. Staying in a marriage for the sake of the kids never works out. She obviously was sleeping with him and then got you to apologize to him. She denied it all. She will put you through the ringer when you divorce her, but you should do it. Chances are, now she has a second phone and an email address to talk to him.
A detective,
your wife
good,
is vicious
finally.
And toxic, and you have to decide if you divorce her now or when your kids have moved out. The sooner the better. So this all would be a lot for anyone to handle. Taking some of the serious, grounded advice that a few people had thrown in there was pivotal for him to begin moving on from this. And so we did. 4 nights later, on November 1st, Jason would return to the relationship advice subreddit and make a follow-up post.
Okay, where are we at, Jason?
I'm taking your advice. He explains his next move. Instead of trying to fix something that she doesn't want to fix, I'm going to get myself and my kids out. I meet with an attorney next week. Thank you everyone for helping me see how far I had my head up my ass. In response to this one, Reddit wished him luck in his endeavors, reinforcing the idea that he's making the right move. But then something strange would happen.
Uh-oh, aliens? What happened?
Going through the comments a bit
Galactic
deeper
fight?
reveals something a little odd. Like we said, yes, people were commending him on his decision, but about a week later, people began jumping back into the post, linking a news article that seemed to align with this situation with striking accuracy.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Smith. Thanks for joining us. 2 Montgomery County children are dead tonight. Their mother, 30-year-old Brandy Worley, says she is responsible for their deaths. News 18's Krista Henry joins us live from the the Montgomery County
Here's the resub Logan ad, and the Tier 1 Rico and resub Spike caps.
Well,
and
Jeff,
the big raid
this
tech
morning
ton.
when I asked Sheriff Mark
Thank you, goddamn.
if Worley showed any kind of remorse, he answered with no, and then went on to say, quote, she, in fact, acted very matter-of-fact.
Hold on. Thank you for the huge raid, Tectone. And thanks to the resub Rogan Gamer. Yeah, I still don't really believe this story is real. This seems like classic Reddit when they thought they caught the Boston bomber type thing, connecting these dots. Clearly I'm not done yet, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, just to catch you up to speed. Dude's wife was slamming meat of a 51-year-old neighbor, and dude went to Reddit for advice, as any sane man would do, I guess. And now Redditors in the follow-up are saying that his wife killed the kids. So that's where we're at. Thanks to the Prime Shift. Reasons why I think it's fake. This guy counted every day for 476 days that his wife was cheating. And apparently his wife fingers herself in movie theater stalls and sends it to him or sends it to the neighbor on Snapchat and him. So I don't know, it seems weird. Seems fishy.
According to ABC6 Indianapolis, on November 17th of that year, a Montgomery County mother was charged with 2 counts of murder after police say she admitted to killing her 2 young children. According to the probable cause affidavit, Brandy Worley told police that her husband was divorcing her, and I did not want him taking them, so I stabbed them. The children's father, Jason Worley, was sleeping in the basement at the time of the crime.
Jesus, why the basement?
According to court documents, Jason had filed for divorce on Wednesday, citing an irretrievable breakdown in the marriage as the reason for the divorce. Now, this definitely carries tons of parallels to the original story. Here, we have a woman named Brandy Worley who, in cold blood, murdered her children, citing the fact that she didn't want Jason taking them as her motive. On the other hand, on Reddit, we have this story by this Jason in Hell guy, who has the same first name, might I add, about his unnamed wife being unfaithful and how he just filed for divorce. And lastly, in his original story, he relayed the fact that his wife claimed that he'll never see the kids again if the two split.
These recent Papa Blacks.
Back when this was unfolding, people were speculating that this might be the same guy. Tons of signs were pointing to this, but most were simply trying to maintain that tiny sliver of skepticism. That was until November 21st, when Jason would return to do one last follow-up, essentially confirming everyone's preconceptions. Thank you. I would like to give a heartfelt and sincere thank you for the advice and support I've received here. No one could have foreseen the tragedy that resulted from me filing for divorce. You guys perform a wonderful service to those in need, and I hope you continue to do so in the future. Below this, he attached a link to the same news article outlining the situation. And it was at this moment that everyone realized just how real this entire thing actually was.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brandy was the one that stoically reported this to the authorities.
That sounds like a totally reasonable post for a father going through grief saying thank you and linking the death of his children so casually.
Montgomery County 911, where's your emergency?
203 South Madison Street.
In what town?
Darlington.
Hey, what's going on there?
I just stabbed myself and I killed my 2 children.
You stabbed yourself and killed your 2 children?
Thanks a good sub, Tony.
Okay, and what's your name?
Brandy Worley.
Brandy what?
Worley.
Okay. How do you spell your last name?
W-O-R-L-E-Y.
And where are the children at?
In my daughter's
No. All of this is real. I'm saying the Reddit post being this couple is what I'm questioning. I'm not done yet, so maybe I'll be convinced here in 4 minutes.
My husband wanted a divorce and wanted to take my kid. I won't let him have my kid.
Okay, and how old are your children?
7 and 3.
10 and 3?
7.
7 and 3? Okay. And where did you stab yourself at?
In the neck.
Okay. Are you bleeding?
Yeah, there's blood everywhere.
There's the bitch
Okay, where are
lavender.
you at?
In my living room.
You're in your living room?
According to court documents, the 2 children, Tyler and Charlie Worley, were stabbed, resulting in deep lacerations on both of their necks. Brandy had stabbed herself in the same place as well, but this surprisingly didn't end up killing her. Shortly after this, Brandy was treated at the hospital for her stab wound, and about a week later was admitted to jail, where she sat for 476 days up until her final sentencing. In 2018, she was convicted of 2 counts of murder, totaling at 120 years in prison. According to Fox 59, Brandy was expected to claim the insanity defense, but ended up settling for a guilty plea. She appeared to be just as unremorseful as she did in the 911 call. She spoke in a very matter-of-fact manner when describing her crime. It was heart-wrenching to hear her speak as she did. All I want, and have ever wanted, was to have her out of sight and mind so I could move forward from this horror. To this day, Brandy Worley sits in the Rockville Correctional Facility in Park County, Indiana, serving out her time in prison for the remainder of her life. As for Jason, he's made a return to Reddit under the nickname Jason in Code, giving everyone a much requested update on how he's coping. Here, he claims that it's been incredibly far from easy, and at times, he's considered taking his own life due to the anguish caused by the passing of his beloved children. Regarding the sentencing, he believes that Brandy shouldn't have gotten the death sentence because that's what she would have wanted, and after 9 years of giving her exactly that, he wanted to avoid it in any way he could. Overall, though, Jason mostly claims that he's doing better, and becomes more so with each passing day. If I can impart you on something that I have learned through all of this, it's that you should always take the time to be with the ones you love. It doesn't matter if they're asking you to read The Pokey Little Puppy for the millionth time, or asking you to play Smash Bros, even though you know that they'll wipe the floor with you every time. Just do it, because you never know what time will be the last time. Always make sure they know how much you love them. I had the fortune that the last thing my children ever heard me say was, "I love you. Good night. I'll see you in the morning."
Yeah, maybe it is real. Or that Jason in Hell, whoever made it,
thanks so much
capitalized off
see you in the next one.
Story.
I love you all.
For internet points. Kind of like those people who make Twitter accounts during a tragedy to try and get points and GoFundMes. But I find that unlikely. Damn, what a wild ride. Still, this really strikes me as super odd. Assuming this is all real, why would he make this post as a follow-up? This does not seem like someone who, literally days after the murder of his kids, would be so cavalier to post this. Seems very odd to me. But, who knows, I guess. Thanks to resub Selden and the Prime Aiden and Turtle. The resub Giblet. Cavalier being the wrong word. Yeah, it could be fake, probably real though. Reddit karma is like the least, like on the food chain of social points, it's literally the lowest. Nobody is Reddit famous. I guarantee maybe 5 people can tell me who has the most karma on all of Reddit because no one gives a fuck. So I don't think someone would farm karma like that. You can be Twitter famous, Facebook famous and all that shit, but Reddit, I've never heard of someone Reddit famous or anything like that. You command 0 power and 0 presence by having a ton of karma on Reddit. Seen that one actually, Wicked. And thanks to the resub Super. So it's probably real then. Fucking wild story. Deep fucking Value isn't famous for Reddit, he's famous for that entire GME movement. Which started on Reddit, I suppose, so you could argue it, but it's not like he was just a Reddit commenter. Like he wasn't a Reddit karma farmer. He was a Redditor who did something fucking crazy, which caught on and blew up. I guess, Bind, I'm just assuming it's real. It seems very, very wild if that was all an elaborate fake from that Reddit account. These are the gifts. Alright, I'll take chat's word for it. We'll watch the new Nexpo vid. I do like the channel.
Wayne Kernigan was stuck at home during an excruciatingly long winter. He was what his parents believed to be a problem child, experiencing nightmares, arguing with his 7 siblings, and getting in trouble at school. Having gone on record to state that his father beats him with hockey sticks, it was undeniable that their humble abode in suburban Connecticut was less of a place of refuge for him. The man on the phone says that Wayne should come right away, and that they'll have a private jet waiting for him at Danbury Airport.
What a good deal.
His mom tells him not to worry,
wow,
and that it's more of an outdoor camp type thing that'll make him better. So Wayne packed up his stuff that night. Eager? Sure. Nervous? Yes. But absolutely awaiting the things to come. Inquire on why he was sent there.
Who made this vid? It's Nexpo.
Drugs.
I keep seeing this one's fucked up.
When Wayne began to question whether he was going to the place he thought he was.
Cults are known to be pretty cool.
Didn't seem right. Looks like a camp, he thinks. However, when he exits the vehicle, he isn't greeted with the silent serenity of nature.
But instead, the screaming.
Yeah, but that could mean anything. I scream when I'm having a lot of fun. Like, yeehaw, we're having fun. Yeah, I saw the American Horror Story cult season. American Horror Story is the best shitty show.
Across the United States, a rise in for-profit behavior modification facilities were in action. Now called the troubled teen or tough love industry, it seemed to be a money machine aimed at altering and stifling troublesome behavior in adolescents.
Well, someone's got
to. It's hard to gauge, given that this was the decade following the rise of the hippie subculture. Authority was and had been challenged for years.
That facial hair is kind of nutty. That looks cool. It's like Wolverine, but not cool like Wolverine's. It's like a little cushion. That's nice. That's like an OG neckbeard.
In early 1970, a psychiatrist named Gerald Davidson, alongside investor David Goldberg and a man named Joseph Ritchie, would band together to create a school named Elan, a private co-ed behavior modification program geared from grade 8 to beyond high school. Ritchie billed the facility as one that would correct bad behavior by teens without punishment, while painting himself as a genuine mentor that could help make that happen.
They had a website?
Have gone on record to state that their initial, outside impression of the school was that it was like a summer camp in the Maine woods. However,
it looks like a summer camp.
Furthermore, some have stated
it does look like Crystal Lake.
The vehicle expecting a lively campground. They're instead faced with a sight much stranger. Some students were spotted wearing degrading signs. Some shackled in handcuffs.
What?
Some being yelled at. Point.
They take discipline very seriously.
To flee. School was marketed, touting itself as an altruistic institution genuinely concerned with helping troubled teenagers get better. It was clear from the outside that those claims were a reach.
Is that Charles Manson teaching the class?
But
man, they got celebrities, teachers. Good for them.
Observe the vernacular.
So this is pretty recent.
To each parent. Dear parents, we're very aware of how lonely and confused you must feel as you sit down to read this. If you're like the parents of most of our students, you're faced with an adolescent whose behavior is out of control, and you don't know why. A youngster who's been given everything and is throwing it all away is difficult to understand, but you can see that this process is progressive. The most saddening part is knowing that your offspring is ruining his or her future. Your own pain is difficult, but your pain for your child is unbearable.
Yeah, they're not reaching their full potential.
It's been noted that Joseph Ritchie was somewhat of a salesman. He was charismatic and excelled at convincing parents of all the good that Elan could do for their kids. The good that, as we'll soon find, was all a lie. Reportedly, once your parents agreed to send you off to Elan and pay the $50,000 tuition fee, they designated time and date with Elan's so-called teen escort service. They wouldn't pick you up during the day, though. Instead, in the middle of the night when you're fast asleep, they would bust through your door and kidnap you.
Why?
In years past, Elan's staff have stated that since the child has no say in attending, their capture hinges on the element of surprise.
Okay.
According to a blog,
so are these just stories? What?
Physically subduing them.
Are these just stories this guy makes up? What? No, what? Is all you read creepypastas? Why would he make up a 52-minute story and make websites to corroborate it and evidence and stuff? It's just like a history lesson that's well presented.
Tying them up with plastic handcuffs, throwing them into a van, and then driving them to Poland, Maine, where they'd be handed over to the Elan school. Such experiences often traumatized the teens who were abducted. For all they knew at first, they were being taken by criminals to be held ransom, tortured, or worse, killed. This practice became notorious around the United States, eventually earning its nickname, the Elan Snatch.
So this was so well known that it had its own name?
Morality wasn't the school's strong suit.
The 70s, man? What are you talking about? This was in 2000. They have a fucking website. Had a website.
Day 1. Students would typically arrive to Elan during the early morning hours of the day.
Oh, it started in the 70s. Oh, gotcha. I see what you're saying.
To resist their escorts.
I see what you're saying, sorry.
It's been noted that their capture was designed this way, utilizing their escape attempt against them as a tool to convey that no matter what, they're not getting out of there. Often, the first stop would be the dormitory showers, which served as a tool in robbing each student of their sense of individuality. Reportedly, students are thrown into them with absolutely no privacy and are demanded to remove all of their clothing and valuable items. After complying, they're given what Alon calls no-image clothing, which, as the name implies, simply includes a bland, colorless shirt and pants, effectively forcing them into a state of conformity.
Well, let's not get carried away. A white t-shirt's pretty cool.
Each new student would be taken into a common area where there is
I wouldn't necessarily look too deep into that.
This, in essence, was a tenured student designated to be a guide. On paper, they were told to help their students adjust to their new life on campus, somewhat like a peer, while educating them on how great and effective the program is. As we've seen in studies like the Stanford Prison Experiment, I'm sure you can see why this wouldn't be a bad idea.
I don't know that experiment.
Oftentimes, Big Brother figures, much like staff, would take great pleasure in exerting their superiority over the newer students.
Looks like the house from Promised Neverland.
If you want to act like a baby, you get screamed at. If you want to act as more like a mature adolescent, you get talked to.
Oh, so I was like, wait, what?
Speaking of cults.
Was that footage from Elon University? Is it Elon or Elan? I don't know how to say it. Either way. But didn't he just say that they were forced to wear, like, the colorless shirts? Because that guy, like, that second guy, he's kind of dripped out. He's got a chain on. He's got a red button up. Oh, that was staff. Gotcha.
The social hierarchy at Elon is structured in a way that heavily resembles one. At the school, students are immediately placed into two categories. Strengths, which were tenured, obedient students that were a few steps up the totem pole, and non-strengths, the newer ones who typically resisted treatment. Strengths were allowed to talk to fellow strengths and non-strengths. Non-strengths, on the other hand, were only permitted to communicate with strengths. If a non-strength were caught communicating with a non-strength, harsh punishment would soon greet them. They were quickly disconnected, reprimanded, and robbed of any future potential.
So if this is supposed to be a scam, I feel like this is a lot more effort than just not
on top of the phone manipulation
doing this.
Every Elon resident was required
it seems like so much more work to
calls
abuse the kids.
Letter, which, as you might expect, is an explanation of how great the Elon school is for them, all the great activities they do there, and how well they're progressing through the program. These letters would be heavily scrutinized before being mailed out to their parents. In most cases,
I get that it's a cult,
verbally
but usually cults have a purpose.
Of the Elon school staff. It was clear to students that they weren't getting away from this anytime soon. And after realizing this, their minds would often pivot away from rebellion and towards compliance in hopes of power.
Yeah, money. That's why I would think they'd want to run a scam as opposed to a cult. And it'd be so much easier to not abuse the kids. It takes a lot more work to do that, I imagine.
To make their escape.
So I'm assuming there is a point to the cult, like they want to turn these kids into like super soldiers or something, I don't really know. But if it was just a scam, they're putting a lot of work into it. Whereas they could just take the kids here for $50K a year and just let them play basketball and sleep.
The Elon school were immense. Exerting nearly totalitarian control over everything that happens, Joe Ritchie's set of rules, which he called guilt, was gargantuan and needlessly meticulous.
Maybe Tier 1 Wheeloo.
As a student at Elon, you would be expected to refrain from doing the following. Having any image, reading as a non-strength, not completing learning experiences, writing without permission, being sideways, looking at security zones, non-strength interacting, talking too loudly, talking too softly, looking at the opposite gender, being attracted to someone, any physical contact, looking out windows, unauthorized drawing, not listening to higher ranks, pretending to sleep at night, thinking of running away, being in the bathroom for too long, wearing dark clothing, being manipulative, being lazy while working, listening to music, talking too much, showering for
all in all, they're pretty lenient.
Not talking enough, making facial reactions to orders, negative body language, pretending not to have guilt, oversleeping, undersleeping, smiling, and the list goes on and on.
That's not bad.
Clearly, these rules were not designed to be followed.
Basically a lawless
causing
place
harsh
over there.
penalizations to become commonplace. To help enforce these,
X37
individuals
Integra
known
and
as
Razzle Dazzle.
expediters were designated by the school to stand on watch with clipboards. Primarily, they were known to catch those that broke 3 rules: being attracted to members of the opposite gender, looking at the opposite gender, and making prolonged eye contact with anyone else. Since expediters too were required to fill their clipboards with names and infractions at the risk of their own punishment, they frequently and unapologetically made assumptions and accusations that were a lie. Cases and the requirement to wear a bright yellow t-shirt and short pink shorts. The school figured that without laces, their shoes were effectively useless, in turn preventing any ability to move any faster than a walk.
What is it, like barbed wire on the ground or something?
Risk punishment
Just go barefoot.
is shown with this student. Instead of a t-shirt and shorts though, he was forced to wear a bright pink rabbit suit with cuffs around his legs. It's unclear if this is a repeat offender, but it raises the question as to how far Alon would actually go with this tactic.
Thanks, the Resub Hunter.
Students that smiled at a place were punished by wearing dunce caps and reduced to work that the school calls shot down. These involved repetitious, dull tasks like mopping floors, scrubbing the insides of trash cans, and even cleaning toilets with just a single toothbrush.
Man, if I went to one of these fucking schools, if my parents sent me here, I would never forgive them.
It's been noted that approval by sometimes 6 or more superiors was required before you were able. And even then, an escort had to watch you while you were in there. This, on top of a myriad of other degrading punishments, like humiliating sign and diaper wearing. It's clear that Alon kept an iron grip on their daily operations. Their daily operations that took up most of the daily schedule, and those that were deceptively named by the Alon school themselves as their treatment.
Makes it a bit savage. Give some Ethan.
But I will say, all of these punishments are relatively tame compared to what we're about to talk about. Let's just say, if you pissed off a staff member, they could start something called a general meeting on you. And trust me, you wouldn't want one.
That doesn't sound so intense. Well, we're just gonna debate, huh?
There seemed to be no standard for them. Get your feelings off, the administrator screams. And following this, each student in the room would begin screaming at and berating the student, firing off slurs and obscenities.
Oh, so it's like Twitter.
No matter how much
pretty innovative
for everyone to stop, no matter how much they broke down, no matter how much they cried, general meetings would not end until the admin said so. And when it finally did, the victim would lie there, often crying and exhausted at the relentless abuse that they'd just endured. It's clear that general meetings aren't designed to reprimand. They're designed to completely break each and every student that's the subject of one. And with this, we can effectively put the points together that Alon was doing nothing more than running an operation that commanded total compliance. Any self-thought or sliver of independence that students thought they had was gone. They were merely reduced to weapons. Weapons that, at a moment's notice, could just as easily be used against them. "7 p.m.
Are they also haunted by vampires or something too? Like, how much worse can it get? Fucking werewolves or something?
On academia and outside marketing, school time within Alon was secondhand to the students' treatment. Typically, the time frame for learning was 7 to 11 p.m., but sometimes could run longer. As you might expect, there were no extracurriculars, no physical education,
on Squish
no
and the resub
projects,
Kuckaroo,
no
Zero,
legitimate
and Gengar.
exams, nothing. Instead, students were required to grade themselves on work that they were self-assigned with absolutely no direction. Allegedly, he believed students were easier to control while sleep-deprived and utilized even this as a medium to work against them. By 11 p.m., if a student makes it through a night of work without issue, school hours then draw to a close.
Not bad.
They're quickly released from class and escorted to their dorms, which were often in the form of uncomfortable, impersonal, military-style bunk beds.
That's military style, a piece of wood?
Sleep was known to be difficult, as designated students named Night Owls were assigned to stand guard with flashlights. In regular intervals, they'd shine them on the sleeping students to both ensure that they hadn't escaped and to secure the fact that they're actually asleep.
What?
A requirement that, as we can recall, was also in the list of Elan's rules. And if one actually manages to calm their nerves, dozing off into their only time of tranquility, that would allow them to effectively place the cap on a day in the nightmare.
I just want to see if like the main guy behind it's still alive, but I don't want it to be a spoiler either. His name was like Joe something and I forgot, so I'm trying to find it. It says, I don't think it's Joe Rogan, but it keeps wanting me to type in Joe Rogan. It was like Joe something. Richie, that's what it was. He's dead. Damn.
A notorious aspect of Elan, among everything else that happened there, was something called the Ring. Considered the highest level of punishment, Elan staff could make the call to start the Ring at any time. Enough for a specific student.
Oh, I gave them safety equipment.
In the Ring, a student's designated as a bully and is outfitted with a face guard and gloves. No one was safe from the Ring either. Some bore pre-existing injuries, some were much smaller than their opponent, and some were even pregnant.
Wait, what?
Even worse, things seemed to be treated like a game, with superiors commentating.
This is only up to high school.
TV. In reality,
how are
this was the furthest.
Wait, I'm super curious then. So how were some of them pregnant? Because you're not even allowed to look at the opposite gender, and assuming that you lived here for a year, how would you get pregnant? That makes no sense to me. I guess if they could have arrived pregnant, which would check out. Staff? Oh, I see what you're saying, by the staff. Right. Thanks to the prime material. I keep forgetting that there's actual adults behind this, because it looks like, it sounds like they literally only appoint the students to do everything here. It's like Lord of the Flies.
This thing from TV.
It costs $17,400 to send the average youngster to Elan for 1 year. Even at that price, there are judges, social workers, and parents who consider it a bargain. Elan's defenders claim it has the most consistently effective program for salvaging young people who are too difficult for other facilities to handle.
It's administered by the kids, first of all. Corporal, it's a harsh term, okay? What it is we have the Ring, okay, which...
oh, he's super open about it.
Misinterprets. It's not a boxing ring, it's a ring of human people. The bully is introduced as what he is. In this corner is the bully who's trying to turn this facility into a detention center, okay? And in this corner is the house champion who's going to show him why it can't be done. And that's exactly how it does. And we never allow the bully to win.
But girls get put in the ring, too.
Well, girls bully as well as boys do. I mean, you know, it doesn't, it's, you know, we're a equal rights facility.
Oh, that's progressive, okay.
Spanking, which is symbolic. Again, it's a last resort, okay? Wow. And it's one resident spanking another resident, and it's done with a ping pong paddle, okay? And usually a person won't get spanked more than once or twice. But it's a symbolic thing, which is if you're going to act like a baby, you should be treated like a baby.
On December
so he is just super open about it.
A 15-year-old Elan student named Philip Williams was placed into the ring. And so, that evening, a ring session commenced with Phil as the bully. There was fight after fight after fight. In the end, it's been reported that he was beaten up so badly that he fell flat on the floor, and it took an entire 20 minutes before an ambulance was called to help him. 20 minutes or so they called the ambulance. They took Phil and they never saw him again. His sister claims, "I thought it was a wonderful place. I thought they were helping my brother. I thought he was coming home."
Like, how can you think that when they actually kidnapped him?
In a box.
Like, I don't get that delusion.
Elan's
Their technique was to kidnap them.
That he had regularly faked headaches. The cause of death? A brain aneurysm. And no charges were ever filed against them. Yeah. That cult is one by the name of Synanon.
Never heard of it, and I know a lot of cults.
County with a warrant to investigate reports of child abuse.
In recent years, Synanon began calling itself a religion.
He's 52 years old. He's deaf in one ear. He's an egomaniac. But one of the wisest persons that I've ever met in my life.
He knows how to get people moving. He creates turbulence.
Gentlemen,
Is the prime bone scope?
No member of the California Department of Corrections is permitted on Synanon property unless he has the express permission of Charles D.
Very cool spectacles. What is he, a fighter pilot?
In early 1958, a man by the name of Charles Dedrick Sr. would found the group in Santa Monica, California. It was intended to be a drug rehabilitation program aimed at delinquents. However, in the years that followed, it appeared to stray from that mission entirely. The distinguishing form of therapy employed by Synanon was something called the game, which, in today's terms, is more commonly known as attack therapy. The focus of the game was to break down the social construct of an individual's mind by first allowing them to open up about themselves before commencing an aggressive beratement session, much like we discussed earlier with general meetings. The primary goal was to recreate someone's personality and sense of self by completely demolishing everything they know about themselves before rebuilding them as a newer, subjectively better person. It hinged on the brink of legality while being entirely immoral. And, unsurprisingly, by 1991, the cult would disband due to criminal convictions that caught up to many of their members. The founder also died just 6 years later, leaving behind a dark legacy that, to this day, is known as one of the most dangerous and violent cults that America has ever seen.
That's weird. I've never heard of them.
This is, of course, the abridged history. To be honest with you, I could make an entire hour-long video on the operations and practices of Synanon.
Oh, they look like they're having fun.
For another day. If there's one takeaway tonight, though, it's that it unknowingly serves as inspiration and blueprint for other institutions to follow. One of those being Elan, and by utilizing similar practices, they appeared to carry the torch that Synanon was forced to abandon. They knew they had to keep up appearances too, thriving off an immaculate public image, spearheaded by the charisma of Joe Ritchie. Before the age of the internet, admittedly this was
built with prime pink. Why didn't they fight back? Brother kids. What do you mean?
Through the late 70s and into the early 80s, reports of the true nature of Elan began to spread by word of mouth from former students. Authorities in Maine reportedly visited the school upwards of 12 times to investigate, however returned with absolutely nothing to show for it. Frustratingly, the operation that Joe Ritchie was running was completely and entirely legal. There were no laws in place for facilities like this, so it was allowed to remain in operation without issue. As we touched on, the media was the primary in for outsiders at Elan. However, even they failed to communicate the extent of their operations. While they showed select parts of it, unfortunately Joe Ritchie was given enough airtime to convince the public and the news crew that it was nothing more than their treatment taking place. By dehumanizing the students, emphasizing their delinquencies on national television, he was able to use this notoriety to his advantage, ultimately swaying the public opinion into believing that what he was doing was entirely good. On top of the growing number of alumni, though, came an increase in escapees, which only furthered Elan's unwanted infamy. Over the years, 3 students, a 16-year-old unidentified individual, a 15-year-old Brad Glickman,
good work,
and a 17-year-old Don Birnbaum would all escape successfully, however would meet wildly differing fates. For the 16-year-old, it's been reported that he ran over 15 miles through the wilderness in the middle of the night. He was eventually caught by an officer, Max Ashburn, and after hearing the boy's story and observing his physical condition, he helped him return home.
What a good guy!
For Brad Glickman, he was shot. In 1990, after escaping Elan's search parties, he made his way to a house in a small town. Authorities believed that he had a connection to the girl that lived there, However, the homeowner opened fire, ultimately killing him.
What? What? That's like the most American shit I've ever heard in my life. This guy must know my daughter. Like, what? Jesus Christ. Actually, 2 gift subs Kill Command and the resub Terra in Tier 1 Summer.
And for Dawn Birnbaum,
how unlucky.
Too had escaped the clutches of Elan, eventually finding a trucker named James Cruz who was willing to take her home. A few hours down the road, though, Birnbaum would find that Cruz's true intentions weren't quite so virtuous.
Oh, Jesus.
As it turned out, he sexually assaulted her on the side of the highway before strangling and abandoning her body between routes 26 and 550 in Pennsylvania. She was discovered by another motorist with a yellow rope tied around her neck and without clothes from the waist down. And from her corpse were tire tracks resembling that of a semi-trailer. Since Birnbaum had crossed state lines, an FBI investigation was commenced for her, and after cross-checking with numerous similar cases that have happened in the area, the truck belonging to James Cruz was deemed as the culprit. Upon catching up to him and searching his vehicle, authorities were able to find but a single blonde hair that belonged to Birnbaum, effectively leading to his arrest.
That's incredible detective work. Like, just think about that for a second. This is in the middle of fucking nowhere. Random trucker picks up a random student, well, student's the wrong word, random person from a cult, and they somehow tracked it down to the right guy who did it. That is incredible. What's incredible? Just the detective work here. There's a Tier 1 pack. And the resub Juke and the Prime Scary Man, and the resub Genius and Virgin Shadow. What?
A cult in a boarding school?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. What are you doing?
What do you think I'm doing? Just watching One Piece.
Okay, well, have fun.
I'm not even playing any games right now.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, you're in a good arc. You're having fun.
It's a really good arc. It really is.
Thanks to resub Side Jellyfish.
Hi, chat. I'm seeing all the hellos, but I can't read too much past that because my glasses are not on. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to that.
Okay, well, have fun.
Much to the school's displeasure, these cases successfully gained ample attention. Joe Ritchie resultingly paid off numerous judges and journalists in hopes of drowning out the negative press.
Thanks to Prime Proximity.
However, outsiders were beginning to catch on that these students were running for a reason.
Quick text message.
But why?
There we go. Okay. All good. Thanks to the resub Adventure Creature Mumbling Plot in the Prime
30th, 1975. A 15-year-old girl named Martha Moxley was out with her friends participating in what they call Mischief Night. This typically involved TPing houses, ding-dong ditching, typical teenager antics. Later that night, Moxley found a liking to a Thomas Skakel, eventually kissing him before the pair decided to venture off. To the other friends in their group, seeing Moxley fall over the Skakel's backyard fence with Thomas was the very last time that they would ever see her alive. The next morning, the Moxley family awakens as usual. They go about their morning routine, however notice that Martha is missing. Upon searching the house for her, they notice a body lying by the tree out in the backyard.
And they don't really have one stoner boner.
And discover a grim scene. Martha is lying, lifeless with her pants down. Her body appears to have been visibly beaten, and a few feet away from the body, broken remnants of a 6-iron golf club.
Holy shit.
This club was eventually traced back to the Skakel family. Autopsy reports claimed that she was bludgeoned and stabbed to death, all by that 6-iron. And since Thomas Skakel was the last person she was spotted with that night, he was the prime suspect in her murder. Due to a lack of sufficient evidence, however, he, among the other suspects, were eventually absolved.
What?
And as a result, the Moxley case, frustratingly, went cold. 3 years later. Thomas's 18-year-old brother named Michael Skakel is arrested for drunk driving.
What a great family all around.
Admission to Elan. While there, Skakel was known to be problematic and outspoken. According to Elan students at the time, he would regularly boast about a girl named Martha and how he sexually assaulted and killed her. One student named Gregory Coleman,
what a weird thing to brag about,
recounting how Michael had gone on record to state that, "I'm going to get away with murder. I'm a Kennedy." The Kennedy reference was alluding to his relation to Robert F. Kennedy, something that would prove pivotal in launching his eventual trial to the national spotlight. At the time of his confession, though, nobody could do anything about it. Given the overbearing nature of the rules set at school, any student that tried to tell someone about this was quickly reprimanded. It would take an entire 22 years before Skakel's actions would reach the public eye. In January of 2000, he was arrested and charged with the murder of Martha Moxley, and due to his relation to the Kennedys, it was a case that commanded the airwaves. Since Skakel's primary vehicle of bragging about his crimes was Elan, this, by proxy, had also thrust the school into the national spotlight. Dozens of students took the stand, exposing the callousness that occurred there. The humiliation, the general meetings, the beatings, the ring, the deaths, all of it was brought into the public eye. Realizing this, Joe Ritchie did everything he possibly could to keep discussion about his operation to a minimum.
He looks like Neil Breen.
He eventually took the stand, downplaying any mention of Elan, touting its high success rate, and doing everything he possibly could to divert the attention back to Skakel
and hope you like God Slap
Skakel
Creamy
only. But this was only marginally effective, as this was in the 2000s. An interconnected era of information catalyzed by a little something called the internet.
That piece of shit, huh?
Michael Skakel was eventually found guilty of the murder and was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. After serving just 11 years behind bars, he was granted a new trial in 2013, in which he was let go after posting a $1.2 million bond.
Oh, Jesus.
Today, he walks a free man. But
Exit Tier 1 sarcastic, and the recent Phil Swift and
the
Stick.
inhumanities committed at the Elan School were documented in one of the most high-profile cases in decades. And because of this, people began talking, theorizing, and investigating, effectively marking the beginning of the end of Joe Ritchie's iron grip on the hundreds of students that were helpless beneath him.
Thanks to the resub Nathan and the Prime Green Gorilla and Tuga sub Sarcastic.
But with his weakening grasp on the media surrounding his operation came a different hurdle that Joe Ritchie would soon have to overcome. In June of 2000, he was diagnosed with lung cancer caused by his well-known addiction to cigarettes. And just 6 months later, on the 29th of January 2001, Joe Ritchie would pass away in Portland, Maine at 54 years old. As a result, his second wife, Sharon Terry, would take over operations at Elan. It was clear, though, that due to the increased publicity among the rising alumni testimonies, the idea of Terry having a lot of PR work on her plate was putting it lightly. Throughout the years, numerous changes would be put in place in response to
Hold on, someone just said something. Skakel is in jail, by the way. His conviction got reinstated in 2016. Thanks to resub Monty, Geo expert in chasing bubbles. Well, this video is brand new, and he said that he's a free man. Let me see. Let's take a peek. I don't see anything about him going back to jail. Yeah, there's nothing about him going back to jail. Literally nothing. It got reinstated, just exonerated in 2020.
For instance, the ring was eventually forbidden from being used as punishment. And while this was substantially a good thing, the other cruelties would remain. What Sharon Terry was unaware of, though, was that due to the rapid rise in technology, namely the internet, even her reign over Elan would soon meet its demise. When the water settled following the Skakel case, mentions of Elan were made on various forums throughout the next few years. They would get people talking, however it wasn't quite enough for definite action. By 2010, though, something would change. A website that we all know very well would help spearhead one of the most effective exposed stories in the history of the internet.
I want to take a guess. I don't know the story, but I want to guess. Is it Something Awful? Something Awful used to be pretty powerful. No way, is it Reddit? God damn it.
That website was Reddit.
Son of a bitch!
On November 26th, 2010, a man named Jeff W., who went by Gazaz My Hero, would make a post titled, "Even skimming this once will blow your mind. Most probably think it's made up, but you'd be dead wrong." Within it, he explains that he was an Elan student in 1998, before outlining, in detail, the reality of what took place there. They're mostly points that we've already covered and explored in great detail tonight. But back then, these claims were unbelievable. The school was very much still in operation, so some initially had a tough time wrapping their head around the fact that a place like this actually existed. But then came the comments. The other stories from other alumni with their own experiences. Gazaz My Hero's post carried weight. It was real, and these atrocities needed to be
Tier
known.
1 Dewey Nose and 2 gift sub Zuki.
Eventually, this thread would rack up over 2,000 likes and 1.4 thousand comments. While this may not have caused Elan's closure outright, it aggressively reopened old wounds. 2010 was not 2000. The internet user base was exponentially larger than it had been, and resultingly, the effectiveness of this newfound attention caused a massive amount of backlash that the Elan school had never before experienced.
Thanks, 3 sub chimeras.
4 months later. On the 23rd of March 2011, the Elan school announced that it would soon be shutting down. Sharon Terry blamed the call on what they deemed to be libelous remarks made about them online. The school has been the target of harsh and false attacks spread over the internet with the avowed purpose of forcing the school to close. The school, unfortunately, has been unable to survive the damage.
Shucks.
And on the 1st of April 2011, the Elan school would close its doors.
What a great date to close on fucking April Fool's Day.
They blamed it on declining student numbers in hopes of diverting the attention away from the actual cause. But on the outside, everyone knew the real reason. For students, this was unbelievably good news. However, the damage they endured was something that would remain.
Thanks to the Prime Bands and Sutrus and the resub, Wilhelm, Geegan, and
numerous suicides have occurred as a result of attendance at Elan. PTSD with alumni is rampant, and it's clear that the school had done nothing but damage people. A filmmaker and former student named Todd Nilsson, creator of a fantastic Elan documentary named The Last Stop, has gone on record to state that, as a student, he was helped by their unconventional tactics, but he knew the majority of others weren't quite so lucky. Today, hundreds of stories remain online about the cruelty committed at the Elan school, about the facade they upkept for 41 years. Reading through these are eye-opening, and you can find them on nearly every piece of media and documentation that exists about Elan online. To all of you that have shared your stories, that have opened up about the torment you went through, your voice is the reason that Elan ceases to exist today. This video would not exist without you, and I wish I could say that I feel your pain. But I don't.
What's Sharon Terry up to? Let me take a peek. Sharon Terry, what's going on? Wow, since 2011 she has vanished. Holy fuck. Her spirit was trapped in Elan, and when it closed down, she just ceased to exist. Holy fuck. Yeah, I cannot find anything of Sharon Terry after 2011, my god. Well, thanks for the resub. Physics. God damn, that was fucking intense. So I imagine over the course of 41 years, they must have had a lot of students graduate. And I'm really surprised that it took Reddit to be the one to finally shut that shit down from one post. The graduates were brainwashed. That's true. I guess it's hard to really understand that perspective, since I obviously wasn't there for the brainwashing. I'm gonna go fill up my water now. I'll be right back. I'm very curious about this. Recommended actually gave me something that sounded interesting.
Hello? This is Rhodey, aka War Machine. The former is played by actor and Academy Award nominee Terrence Howard. The latter is played by actor and Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle, the man. Also, Terrence Howard's the guy you might remember has been trying his best to convince the world that 1 times 1 equals 2. He tries to completely change math as we know it. That's how I know Terrence Howard.
The first Iron Man film, but you might not know why.
Didn't he want like a ton of money?
Within these big franchises that consistently gets torn down and torn apart by the media when you realize what's going on underneath. But having the title of Oscar winner on a resume means that they can also charge more for their performances. By the time Iron Man was rolling into production,
so it is a money thing. I'm pretty sure it was just money.
Around $3.5 to $4.5 million for that performance.
Not bad.
This made him one of the highest paid actors in the film.
Pretty solid.
And at that time, he's actually paid over 6 times more than Robert Downey Jr. He only made about $500,000.
Only is the wrong word for that number, I think.
Studio on set money. When a project like Iron Man is successful enough to create a franchise, it's usually great for everyone involved. The directors and producers...
Except Terrence Howard.
Robert Downey Jr. was rumored to have made $10 million for the second film, a pay increase of about 2,000%.
Not bad.
He was able to, on the other hand, was actually offered a significant decrease in pay from what he was expecting to earn.
I'm jealous.
Marvel eventually offered only $1 million. It's rumored that Iron Man director Jon Favreau was ultimately unhappy with Terrence Howard's performance.
I do remember hearing that they did not like him. Like he was very rude.
But to make sure that Terrence Howard's future roles would be measured against a larger contract.
Yeah, so it really was a money thing and they just didn't like him in the movie.
Returns in the future on the next film or the
it's
film.
It's not super deep, it doesn't
After
seem.
the dust settled, publicly claimed that he was the one who recommended RDJ for the role of Iron Man, but that he ultimately was happy with the way things turned out.
Terrence Howard is a really weird guy, though. Like, aside from giving a bad performance and wanting more money, he's a very unlikable person to work with from everything I remember reading. Plus, he's the guy that keeps really trying to push that 1 times 1 equals 2. Billionaire wants to create futuristic city in Arizona desert.
And he wants the first phase to be built by 2030. Team 12's Michael Doudna has...
Sounds cool to me.
But is this utopia built in the desert even possible?
The
yes.
Technology to do what he
Who is this, God? Oh my God. Holy Lord. Where is he?
He's the first person that tried to build utopia.
In fact,
wow.
Lord wouldn't even be the first.
Man's communicating from heaven. I wish him the best. Good luck. I was just reading about the Jagex situation. They just shut down RuneLite HD, which has been in production for 2 years, where a guy named 117 put 2,000 hours of his life into it, and it was supposed to release, I think it was today, and Jagex today said, fuck you, and they shut it down. Even though they've known about its existence for the last 2 years, they waited until launch day to shut it down, just to fuck this guy in the ass as hard as they could. It was despicable. I was reading up on that. From what I understand, it wasn't the old school RuneScape team that did it. It was more of like the upper echelon of Jagex, but my god. That's some toxic shit. If they really didn't want that, they could have told him at the beginning. I watched the update on Yandere Simulator. No, let's check it out. Is Yandere dev still acting like a weirdo? Oh, it's done?
He's made a statement on the WordPress. He's made a statement on his Patreon. He's decided to let the people know who are financially supporting him what exactly is going on here.
All right, it's ready. Whoa, look at that. So after what, 9 years in development? It's finally ready? I mean, this is probably one of the most troubled developments of all time. Very public meltdowns, almost nothing going right, but we got there, baby. We fucking got there. It's not actually done. These posts make it sound like he thinks it's done. Oh, it's just a separate game mode that he finished? Jesus Christ. Oh. Oh my god. Alright, I see what's happened here. Jesus Christ. What's the point in never finishing the project? Is there any benefit to him? Yandere Simulator is it's old school. This shit was in development for so long. Most of the big YouTubers played it. PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, they've all played Yandere Sim. It was a massive, massive game when it was like first released as like a demo thing. And then I believe it was put up as a crowdfunding thing that has just never even been close to done. And the developer has very public meltdowns. He like purges his Discord and Hangouts once a week, or at least he used to. It's been a true disaster of a journey.